Chapter 3421. Special Circumstances? Miao was taken aback. That's right. I was slapped by a country bumpkin in public in your Tianyu restaurant. You should come and deal with this matter. There was a trace of resentment in the young man's eyes. Miao frowned and smiled. Young Masterly, don't joke around. How could someone cause trouble in Tianyu restaurant? You still don't believe me? Look at the handprint on my face. You can ask the waiter in your restaurant. The young man in purple pointed at the handprint on his face and said angrily. Then he pulled the waiter in front of him. Miao glanced at the purple-clothed young man's face before turning to the shop assistant and asking, "Is there really such a thing?" "Yes." The waiter nodded. Hearing this, Miao's face darkened slightly and said, "Wait here, I'll be right there." With that, the illusory figure dissipated. "Brat, just you wait." The young man in purple put away the divine voice stone and looked coldly at Qin Feiyang. The flirtatious woman hugged the young man's arm and sneered. Almost everyone else had a gloating look on their faces. But for this, Qin Feiyang, Frenzy White-Eyed Wolf, and Pei Tianhong turned a blind eye and drank their tea quietly. In less than 10 breaths, a woman in colorful clothes with an exquisite figure and graceful bearing walked into the Tianyu Tower. "Leader." The waiter hurried to greet her. "What's going on?" Miao asked. The waiter said, "I don't know either. I was serving a guest outside when I suddenly heard a commotion in the waiting area. When I turned around, I saw them arguing." Miao raised her eyebrows and walked into the waiting area. The young man in purple immediately retreated to the side of the flirtatious woman and walked in front of Miao, looking like a pervert. This made the flirtatious woman very unhappy. In fact, not only Miao, but also Yueqing was a goddess in the hearts of many young people. Not only was he capable, but he was also related to Qin Feiyang. If he were to marry them, it would mean that he would have a huge backer. Miao glanced at the palm print on the purple-clothed young man's face. Then, her gaze landed on Qin Feiyang and the others. Powerful, she was quite knowledgeable. Although Qin Feiyang and the others were restraining their auras, and it was impossible to tell what their cultivation levels were, the temperament and the hidden sharpness of their auras were directly pressing down on the divine soul. "Long time no see." Qin Feiyang put down his teacup and looked up at Miao with a smile. That smile, that gaze. Miao was stunned. Why did she look so much like that man? "You are." She looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. "It's only been a few months since we parted in the Western continent. Have you forgotten about me so quickly?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "After we parted in the Western continent. A few months," Miao murmured. Suddenly her gaze trembled. She looked at the frenzied one and the white-eyed wolf and exclaimed in surprise, "It's you guys." "Who else?" Qin Feiyang smiled. "What's going on?" Seeing this scene, everyone was a little taken aback. They thought that Miao would definitely help the purple-clothed young man. However, looking at the current situation, it seemed that something was not right. That was because they saw not only surprise in Miao's eyes, but also a trace of reverence, and even a trace of admiration. That's right. That was admiration. Admiration for the man in front of her. "Miss Miao Miao." The purple-clothed young man could not help but frown. Miao took a deep breath and turned to look at the purple-clothed young man. Then, she looked at the waiter and said expressionlessly, "Throw them out." "Yes, throw them out." The purple-clothed young man sneered. He thought that Miao meant to throw Qin Feiyang and the others out. The waiter was not sure at first, but after hearing the purple-clothed young man's words, he thought so too. He walked towards Qin Feiyang and the others. "I mean, throw this piece of trash with the surname Li out." Miao looked at the waiter and shouted. "Ah!" The waiter was stunned. He quickly stopped and looked at the purple-clothed young man. "Miss Miao Miao, are you mistaken?" The purple-clothed young man was also stunned. Miao turned a deaf ear to his words and glanced at the waiter. "Do you want me to repeat myself?" The waiter shuddered and immediately ran to the purple-clothed young man. He pointed at the door and said, "Young Masterly, please." "Miao, what do you mean?" Young Masterly was instantly furious. He actually managed to blast him out of the room. As the son of the Li family patriarch, he was treated in such a manner again. This was simply a humiliation to him. "Young Masterly, Don't make it difficult for me. Seeing this, the waiter frowned and said in a low voice, Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to me like this? The purple-clothed young man shouted at the waiter. Then, he looked at Yi Miao and said angrily, You need to give me an explanation. Why should I explain my actions to you? If you really want an explanation, I can only tell you that you've offended someone you shouldn't have. Yi Miao sneered. Someone I shouldn't have. Hearing this, the purple-clothed young man was stunned. He could not help but look at Qin Feiyang and the others. Could it be that these people were pretending to be weak? The others were also thinking about it. With the strength of Tianyue Restaurant, they did not even care about those wealthy and prominent families. This was because Qin Feiyang was not the only one behind Tianyue Restaurant. The Demon Palace was also taking care of them. However, at this moment, Yi Miao said that they had offended someone they should not have offended. This was enough to prove that these people definitely had a powerful background. Men. Seeing that the purple-clothed young man did not move, the waiter shouted. Immediately, 5 burly men in black ran out from the back hall. They were all at the eternal perfection stage. Throw them out, the waiter said. The 5 burly men in black nodded, and immediately went forward. They led the purple-clothed young man and the beautiful woman to the entrance, and threw them on the street like garbage. The little white wolf was not spared either. The 2 men and the wolf were in an extremely sorry state. From now on, you're not allowed to take half a step into Tianyue Restaurant. Yi Miao walked to the entrance and said coldly to the 2 men. Then, she turned and walked toward Qin Feiyang and the others with a smile on her face. It was a completely different treatment. The purple-clothed young man got up and looked at the crowd around him. They were all looking at him with ridicule. The anger in his heart could not be contained. He stared at Yi Miao's back and muttered, Bitch, just you wait. With that, he turned and left angrily. Young Masterly. The beautiful woman hurriedly chased after him. Get lost. The purple-clothed young man turned and mercilessly kicked the beautiful woman away. The woman was rolling on the ground in pain. I didn't expect that. He really didn't say much, and he already chased young Masterly out. Isn't Yi Miao going to ask about the details? Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang and the others, their hearts filled with disbelief. Who exactly were these people? Looking at Yi Miao again, she walked to Qin Feiyang and the others and said with a smile, When did you come back? 2 days ago. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. 2 days ago. Why did you come to Tianyue Restaurant only now? Besides, you should have told me in advance that you were coming, so that I could have prepared a welcome dinner for you. Don't you treat me as a friend? Yi Miao was a little unhappy. Not at all. I know you're very busy, so I didn't want to disturb you. Qin Feiyang smiled. Since you're here, I have to welcome you personally no matter how busy I am. After Yi Miao finished speaking, she looked at the waiter beside her and ordered, Arrange a private room immediately. Boss, there are no more private rooms. The waiter hurriedly said, No more? If there's no more, make one available. Yi Miao said angrily. But there are guests everywhere. How can we make one available? The waiter was a little troubled. Yi Miao was stunned, then patted her head. She looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said with a smile, I'm so happy to see you guys back that I'm a little confused. Then, she looked at the waiter again and said, Tell the kitchen to prepare a portion of all the signature dishes of Tianyue Restaurant and send it to the VIP room. Also, go to the wine cellar and send the best wine to me. VIP room? The waiter was slightly stunned and could not help but look up at the top floor. There were hundreds of private rooms in Tianyue Restaurant, but there was only one VIP room. This VIP room was never opened to the public by the 2 bosses. It was specially used to entertain distinguished guests. Those who had entered the VIP room were all famous big shots, such as the Demon Hall Master, Deputy Hall Master Chu Yin, and Elder Hua. In short, except for such people, no one was qualified to step into the VIP room on the top floor. But now, the boss actually wanted to use the VIP room to entertain these people in front of them. This background was truly unfathomable. Go quickly, Yi Miao shouted. Yes, yes, yes. The waiter came back to his senses, nodded hurriedly, and ran to the kitchen. Yi Miao also looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Qin, But before she could say anything, Qin Feiyang interrupted Yi Miao and said with a smile, "You're the host. You go first." Yi Miao was stunned and nodded with a smile. Then, she turned and walked upstairs with a trace of suspicion. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other, and also stood up to follow. Awesome. Who the hell is this? Even Yi Miao is so polite? Everyone looked at the backs of Qin Feiyang and the others with a look of suspicion. About a moment later, Qin Feiyang and the others followed Yi Miao into the VIP room. The VIP room was extremely large, magnificent, and incomparably imposing. Yi Miao walked into the tea room, pointed at the chair beside the tea table, and said with a smile, "Qin Dage, please sit." "Sit down." Qin Feiyang nodded and led Madman and Pei Tianhong to sit in front of the tea table. "You should be big brother Madman." Yi Miao looked at Madman and asked with a smile, "Little girl, you have good eyesight." Madman laughed and pointed at Pei Tianhong and Pei Tianhong, saying, "Then guess who these two are?" Yi Miao looked at the two with a trace of suspicion in her eyes. "All right, don't keep me in suspense. They are Old Pei and Old Wang, the Blood Hall's Hall Master, and the Dark Guard's Deputy Commander. You've seen them before." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Yi Miao's heart trembled as she bowed and said, "Greetings to the two lords." Although Pei Tianhong and Pei Tianhong had kidnapped her, the two of them were too strong. Now that they were following Qin Feiyang, she didn't dare to have any complaints. Pei Tianhong waved his hand. He didn't feel guilty or apologetic, because in his eyes, other than Qin Feiyang, no one had the right to make him apologize, even if he had done something to hurt Yi Miao. Chapter 34-22. After knowing that it was Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan, Yi Miao seemed a little unnatural. "Don't be nervous, we're all on the same side now." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. "And?" Yi Miao nodded and looked at Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan. Then, she looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Why did you change your appearance?" Previously, when she was about to call Qin Dage, she was also stopped by Qin Feiyang. So there should be something wrong. As for the purple-clothed young man, she did not ask. If it was someone else, she would definitely ask clearly. But the person involved was Qin Feiyang. After being together for so long, she understood Qin Feiyang's character. He would not take the initiative to cause trouble. Moreover, with Qin Feiyang's current strength and status, a playboy like the purple-clothed young man would not even bother to look at them, let alone take the initiative to provoke them. So without a doubt, it must be the purple-clothed young man who caused trouble first. It's a long story. When Elder Hua and the others come, I'll tell you slowly. Anyway, for now, try not to get involved with me. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and took out the divine sound transmission stone. Buzz! After a while, Elder Hua's shadow appeared. Elder Hua's face was filled with joy because through the divine sound transmission stone, he knew that it was Qin Feiyang who sent him a message. But when he saw the unfamiliar face in front of him, he was stunned. But soon, he realized what was going on. It must be Qin Feiyang who changed his appearance, because it was impossible for anyone to impersonate the divine sound transmission stone. Elder Hua, long time no see. Qin Feiyang smiled. Brat, you still dare to smile? What did you say back then? Before you left, you told us. But what happened? You ran to the Een Demon Land without saying a word. Elder Hua's face darkened. I'm sorry. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly. You don't need to tell this old man these things. Go tell your master. When he found out that you went to the Shadow Demon Land without a word, he and the Hall of Famers were very worried. Elder Hua said indifferently. Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist looked at each other and felt quite touched. Qin Feiyang said, when the time comes, we will go to the Western continent to ask for forgiveness. Come to the Tianyue building first. It's best if you bring Chu Yun and the Hall Master with you. I have something to say. What is it? Elder Hua was suspicious. Something very important. Qin Feiyang's eyes darkened. Seeing this, Elder Hua's eyelids twitched. Looking at Qin Feiyang's expression, he knew that it wasn't a small matter. He nodded and said, all right, I'll go look for the Hall Master and Little Yun immediately. Don't let anyone see you. Go directly to the VIP room. Qin Feiyang reminded. Yes. Elder Hua nodded and turned off the divine voice stone. Qin Feiyang also put away the divine voice stone. Yi Miao had already brewed the tea. Qin Feiyang took a sip of the tea and asked, "Where's Yueqing? Why don't I see her?" "Sister Yueqing is in the Western continent now," Yi Miao said with a smile. "The Western continent?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "Yes. Isn't our goal to open a branch in the Western continent? In the past, the Blood Hall controlled the Western continent, and we couldn't do anything about it. But it's different now. The Rogue Cultivators Alliance is in charge of the Western continent now. Back then, after you sent us back to the Eastern continent, Sister Yueqing and I went to the Deputy Alliance Master and told him about our request. He agreed without hesitation. So, Sister Yueqing has been busy in the Western continent, and I stayed behind to look after the Tianyue building in the Eastern continent," Yi Miao said with a smile. "I see." Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. The madman laughed cruelly and said, "Then shouldn't you thank us properly? We've never dared to forget the help that Qin Dage and Brother Emo have given us. And now, regardless of whether it's the Tianyue building in the Eastern continent or the Western continent, we've given 1/3 of our profits to the Demon Hall and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance for free. It's a win-win situation." Yi Miao Miao smiled. "That's right. After all, you're in someone else's territory. Just treat it as a protection fee." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Yes." Yi Miao nodded. "What about Yun Ziang?" Qin Feiyang asked. "There's no news." Yi Miao shook her head. "There's still no news?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "Yes. Ever since he left last time, he hasn't come back. And he hasn't responded to any of our messages. If not for the fact that the contract bridge is still there, we would have thought that he had unfortunately died outside. But we don't know where exactly he is. And what exactly is he doing?" Yi Miao Miao sighed while dense worry covered the space between her brows. The existence of the contract bridge didn't mean that he was definitely safe. He could be trapped somewhere, or he could be kidnapped. In any case, it was worrying. After all, she and Yueqing had been taken care of by Yun Ziang back then. And back then, the establishment of the Tianyue building was also thanks to Yun Ziang's help. Otherwise, with Yueqing's ability, it wouldn't have been so smooth. Wait, Yun Ziang? Yun Zifeng? These two names seem a little. White-Eyed Wolf was suddenly surprised. Qin Feiyang and the other three were also slightly taken aback. That's right. Yun Ziang, Yun Zifeng. Why did these sound like brothers' names? Was it a coincidence? It should be a coincidence. The Sky Cloud realm is so big. There are even people with the same name, not to mention only one word difference. And the Yun family doesn't seem to have a young man named Yun Ziang. Pei Tianhong said. Really? Qin Feiyang asked. Pei Tianhong thought for a moment and said, I don't know about the ordinary disciples of the Yun family, but I can guarantee that there are no genius disciples of the Yun family. Ordinary disciples? Qin Feiyang lowered his head, his eyes flickering. Pei Tianhong said that the monster protected by the Yun family had activated a kind of strongest law. If he remembered correctly, Yun Ziang had mastered the space-time law, and it just so happened that his surname was Yun. Was this really a coincidence? Swish! At this moment, a space-time crack appeared. Following closely, 3 figures walked out of the space-time crack. It was Elder Hua and the other 2. They had been to this VIP room before, so they knew the coordinates. Let's also show our faces. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly, took out the facial restoration pill, and threw it into his mouth. Frenzy, White-Eyed Wolf, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Changyuan all returned to their original appearances. It really is you guys. Looks like you guys have gained a lot in the Een Devil land. You guys have already broken through to the greater success dominator realm. Chu Yin looked at Qin Feiyang and Frenzy and said, Of course. Frenzy smiled proudly. You guys really don't know what it means to be low-key. Chu Yin rolled her eyes, then looked at Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan, her pupils shrinking slightly. Why was there such a sense of oppression? Although Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan didn't reveal any aura, the moment their gazes met, Chu Yin suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of oppression in her heart. This was like the oppression from a superior. Demon Palace Hall Master and Elder Hua were also sizing up the two of them, and they also felt a strong sense of oppression. Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan didn't speak, silently drinking their tea with an unfathomable look. Did you find the fire dragon? Elder Hua retracted his gaze and looked at Qin Feiyang, Frenzy and White-Eyed Wolf. Found it. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then did you kill it? Elder Hua asked. No. Qin Feiyang shook his head. No. Elder Hua was stunned. One had to know that Qin Feiyang brought 3 sovereign weapons, Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan, 9 commanders and 6,000 dark guards with him. Such a lineup could flatten an entire continent, but they couldn't kill the fire dragon? What a joke! When we went in, we brought a horsetail whisk. As for the ancient castle and your sovereign weapons, they are all recovering in the Black Tortoise world. The 6,000 dark guards and 9 commanders are also recovering in the Black Tortoise world. The fire dragon's strength and foundation far exceeded our imagination. So not only did we not kill it, we almost lost our lives. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. It's that powerful. Elder Hua couldn't believe it. Although they didn't bring the ancient castle and their sovereign weapons, they still had the horsetail whisk and Pei Tianhong. Moreover, the White-Eyed Wolf, Frenzy, and Qin Feiyang weren't weak either. Putting everything else aside, just the horsetail whisk's strength was enough to kill the fire dragon easily. I called you guys here to tell you guys about this. You guys have to be mentally prepared. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. Elder Hua and the others looked at each other. Was it that serious? Then I'll leave first. Yi Miao said. She was very tactful. Since it was something important, it was better for her to leave. No need. You'll know about this sooner or later. It's better for you to know now. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Okay. Yi Miao nodded and sat quietly at the side. Qin Feiyang looked at Wang Changyuan and said, Old Wang, don't hide anything. Tell us everything about the dragons. Yes. Wang Changyuan drank a mouthful of tea to moisten his throat, then put down the teacup and set up a soundproof barrier. He told them everything he saw and experienced in the Yin Demon Land. In the entire VIP room, there was no other sound except for Wang Changyuan's voice. In the meantime, the waiter brought the food and wine, but was sent away by Yi Miao. About half an hour later, Wang Changyuan finally finished and looked at the 4 of them. That's it. You guys take your time to digest it. They indeed needed time to digest it. Although Elder Hua and the others were big shots of the Demon Palace and the overlord of the Eastern Continent, it was the first time they heard about the dragons, just like Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan. Originally, in their opinion, big shots like them were already at the top of the pyramid in the sky cloud boundary. Except for the sovereign weapons, they were invincible. As long as they joined forces, it wouldn't be a problem to unify the sky cloud boundary. But they never thought that there would be such a huge monster hidden in the Yin Demon Land. Not to mention the strength of the dragon tribe. There were already 2 sovereign divine weapons in their possession. For them, it was completely a bolt of lightning that caught them off guard. It was hard for them to accept it. Even Elder Hua and the others were like this, let alone Yi Miao. She was so scared that she couldn't even speak. Chapter 34-23. After a long time, Elder Hua and the other 2 finally finished digesting it. In other words, the dragon race has begun to hunt you down? Elder Hua asked. If it wasn't for Qin Feiyang and the others, they wouldn't have believed it even if they were beaten to death. It was too shocking. Who would have thought that there was such a behemoth hidden in the sky cloud realm? The most important thing was, for so many years, there had been no news of the disappearance of the dragons. If it wasn't for Qin Feiyang and the others chasing after the fire dragon and going deep into the inner area, they would probably never have discovered the existence of the dragons. Dragon's nest dragons, just how strong was this mysterious force? That's right. As expected, they should be blocking the exit of the Yin Devil Land. Qin Feiyang nodded. Sure enough, when the devil is 1 foot tall, the Tao is 10 feet tall. Although the dragons are powerful compared to you guys, it doesn't seem to be enough. Elder Hua chuckled. You don't have to praise us like that. Facing the dragons, we are also scared to death. Qin Feiyang shook his head. This wasn't an ordinary force. To put it bluntly, Qin Feiyang and the others weren't afraid of the Divine Palace and Sky Palace at all. But this was the dragons. So far, 2 sovereign divine weapons had appeared. Who knew how many more they had? Then how are you going to deal with it? The Devil Palace Lord asked. We definitely can't fight them head-on. Let's slowly find an opportunity. However, from now on, you have to keep a distance from us. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. The 3 fell silent. We don't care. We have nothing to lose. At most, we will fight them to the death. If we can't win, we will run. But you guys are different. You are the leaders of the Devil Palace with heavy responsibilities. You can't give up the Devil Palace and follow us to the edge of the world. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Makes sense. Chu Yin nodded. She looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Not bad. You still know how to think for others. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He looked at Chu Yin curiously and asked, From what you're saying in your eyes in the past, I was a selfish person? Cough cough. Chu Yin coughed dryly to hide the awkwardness on her face. In the past, he did not have a good impression of Qin Feiyang and the madman. As far as she was concerned, the reason Qin Feiyang and Lu Xian were on good terms with the Devil Hall was entirely because they wanted to rely on the Devil Hall to deal with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Blood Hall. Qin Feiyang felt helpless. What happened to sincerity and trust? Yi Miao asked. So, you changed your appearance and came to see us because you were worried that you would implicate us? That's right. If I come to you openly now, the dragons will definitely come looking for you when they receive the news. At that time, there's no guarantee that nothing will happen. Qin Feiyang sighed. But, whether it's the Devil Hall or my Tianyue building, everyone knows about our relationship with you. Even if we pretend that we don't know each other now, no one will believe us. Yi Miao frowned. That's for sure. After the dragons enter the eastern continent, they will definitely come looking for you after investigating what happened. However, we are the only ones who know what kind of relationship we have. When the dragons ask you about it, you can say that in the past, we were only using each other and taking what we needed. As long as the dragons are a little more rational, they won't do anything to you. At most, they will send someone to monitor you. Qin Feiyang said. Why? Chu Yin asked. Because your Devil Hall is the overlord of the eastern continent. Although your strength is much weaker than the dragons, after so many years of operation, you have already won the hearts of the people. There's a good saying that water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize it. This sentence can also be used on the dragons. They dare to kill anyone, but they don't dare to offend everyone in the world. And you have to know that although the dragons have always existed in the Sky Cloud realm, they have never appeared. Now that they suddenly appear, everyone will definitely resist them at first. So if they appear too strong and ferocious as soon as they appear, it will definitely arouse strong disgust from everyone. Although they are strong, they definitely don't have the guts to become enemies with everyone in the world. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. That makes sense. Elder Hu nodded and asked with a smile. Then, what if they ask us to deal with you with them? It doesn't matter. Just do it. We won't blame you. Qin Feiyang shrugged. Don't make it sound so nice. If they hold a grudge against us, we can't afford to offend them. Chu Yin said. Do I look like that kind of person to you? Qin Feiyang was helpless. Couldn't they trust him a little more? They had agreed that they would be friends in the future. Besides, Fire Lotus was Elder Hu's disciple. No matter what, he couldn't do something like deceiving his master. Little Yin why do I feel that you always like to bicker with old Qin? Madman looked at Chu Yin and chuckled. Shut up. Chu Yin glared at him. Do I have to shut up just because you want me to? I am now a man who has mastered 2 of the strongest profound meanings. Madman was proud. Amazing. Chu Yin looked at him indifferently. Of course. Madman smiled proudly. He didn't know what it meant to be thick-skinned. Chu Yin was so angry that her teeth itched. Chu Yin was speechless. Elder Hu shook his head and laughed. He waved his hand and said, all right. Those who don't know will think that you two are arguing. Huh. Madman was stunned. Chu Yin's expression stiffened slightly. She looked at Elder Hua angrily and said, "Old man, what are you talking about? How can you say this casually?" "That's right. How can you say this casually? I am a handsome man with extraordinary talent. How can I fancy such a tigress?" Madman pursed his lips. When Chu Yun heard this, she immediately pointed her spear at Madman and shouted, "What did you say? Say it again? Tell me the truth. Let me tell you I am taken. Don't have any ideas about me." Madman scratched his chin and said shamelessly. Chu Yun clenched her jade-like hands and was about to go berserk. "Stop, stop." Elder Hua also had a helpless look on his face. He was just trying to persuade them, but he didn't expect them to become more and more fierce. Then, he looked at Qin Feiyang and Madman and said, "Our Demon Palace and Heavenly Joy Tower are easy to deal with. Although you are disciples of our Demon Palace, it is only in name. As for Fire Lotus, although she is my personal disciple, not many people know about it. The only thing that is difficult to deal with now is the Rogue Cultivator Alliance." "That's right. The Vice Alliance leader of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Hall of Famers are both your masters. Moreover, this is something that everyone in the world knows. They can't possibly say that they used each other in the past, right? Even if they say that, those dragons will definitely not be stupid enough to believe them." The Demon Palace Hall Master also spoke. "I have already planned for this matter. In short, I will not implicate any of you." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he called out Fire Lotus. "Greetings, Master." "Greetings, Hall Master Senior Sister." Fire Lotus bowed to Elder Hua and the other two. "Senior Sister?" Madman was stunned. Didn't Elder Hua say before that Chu Yun is his student? So Chu Yun is equivalent to Fire Lotus's senior sister. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. "That's right." Madman slapped his head. Good, good, good. You have already broken through to the half-step ruler realm. It seems like you haven't been lazy these past few months." Elder Hua's face was full of love. "Qin Dage and Little Madman have improved so quickly. How would I dare to be lazy?" Fire Lotus shook her head and smiled. "What are you comparing with them for? They are two monsters." Elder Hua pursed his lips, then smiled and said, "You have to have a good attitude and fight steadily. Don't be in a hurry." "Okay." Fire Lotus nodded. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Return the sovereign divine weapon to them. Don't let others say that we want to take their sovereign divine weapon. Don't be so weird. I didn't say that." Chu Yun raised her eyebrows. "Senior sister, can you not take it personally? Are we talking about you?" Madman looked at her with disdain. Chu Yun glared at him fiercely. Fire Lotus chuckled, then took out a red sword and handed it to Elder Hua. Elder Hua sized up the red sword and nodded with a smile. "Not bad, not bad." In just a few months, it has been restored to its original state. The origin energy is indeed the best medicine for a sovereign divine weapon. Master, it has only been a few months outside, but hundreds of thousands of years have passed in the Black Tortoise world. Fire Lotus reminded. Yes, yes, yes. Look at my head. I am so old and muddle-headed. I always forget about this. Elder Hua shook his head. Looking at these young people in front of him, who were like the sun in the sky, he had no choice but to admit that he was old. Suddenly, Elder Hua turned to look at Chu Yun and said, "Xiao Yun, why don't you make a trip to the Een Devil Land and see if the dragons are really guarding the exit?" "Why aren't you going?" Chu Yun frowned. Elder Hua laughed embarrassedly. "Don't you control the laws of time and space? It's more convenient." "Don't make it sound so nice. You're obviously lazy." Chu Yun glared at Elder Hua in dissatisfaction, then opened a space teleportation tunnel and left. "Did you see that? A typical sharp-tongued but soft-hearted person." Elder Hua looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and laughed. Qin Feiyang, Madman, and Fire Lotus looked at each other and smiled. Then, Qin Feiyang picked up his teacup and drank his tea while muttering to himself, as if he was thinking about something. Fire Lotus started to chat with Elder Hua. The Demon Palace's Hall Master also started to chat with Pei Tianhong. Although they were old enemies in the past, they had known each other for many years and had quite a bit of friendship. Furthermore, now that Pei Tianhong had followed Qin Feiyang, he could be considered to have turned from an enemy into a friend. Dan Wangkai. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang seemed to have made a decision and secretly sent a sound transmission to Dan Wangkai. What is it? Dan Wangkai's voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. Qin Feiyang sent a sound transmission. Organize 3 sets of pills that can open the door to potential for me. Do you need every kind of pill? Dan Wangkai was startled and asked. Of course. The whole set. Qin Feiyang replied. All right, I'll organize it right away. Dan Wangkai did not ask for the reason. Other than refining pills, he was not interested in these things. In any case, he would just do whatever Qin Feiyang said. Not long later, Dan Wangkai prepared 3 palm-sized jade boxes that contained all sorts of pills. There were potential pills, small fortune pills, great fortune pills, and so on. Qin Feiyang took out 3 jade boxes and gently placed them on the tea table without saying a word. Chapter 34-24. Elder Hua and the others also saw the 3 jade boxes. But because the lid was closed, they couldn't sense the aura of the pills, so they didn't pay much attention to it. After a while, Qin Feiyang turned to look at Yi Miao and said with a smile, Miao Miao, you go out first. I have some personal matters to discuss with Elder Hua and the others. Okay. Yi Miao nodded. She was very sensible and didn't ask anything. She stood up and left. What personal matters? Elder Hua and the Demon Hall Master looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang looked at the tightly shut door and smiled at the two of them. I'll tell you when senior sister Chu Yin comes back. I guarantee that you'll be surprised. So mysterious. Elder Hua rolled his eyes at him and continued to chat with Fire Lotus. His words were filled with concern for Fire Lotus. After a while, a space-time rift appeared. Chu Yin walked out from inside, her face full of solemnity. What's wrong? Elder Hua and the Demon Hall Master raised their heads to look at Chu Yin and couldn't help but frown. There are indeed many people hiding at the exit of the Een Devil Land. Chu Yin said in a deep voice. Is he inside? Qin Feiyang waved his hand and projected the figure of the white-clothed youth with his divine power. Yes. There's also a little girl. Chu Yin waved her hand and a woman in a black dress appeared. She said, behind her is a black-clothed old man and a black-clothed burly man. The aura they exuded is very terrifying. It's them? Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at each other. You've seen them before? Chu Yin asked. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and explained. At that time, when senior brother Feng Zi was receiving the inheritance, it was them who came out halfway. As for the woman who attacked me from behind, I think it should be her. We finally found her. The madman and the white-eyed wolf also laughed. An eye for an eye. When this woman came to ambush them, they naturally had to let her have a taste of being ambushed. Then how strong are they? Elder Hua asked. Very strong. This old man has mastered the laws of destruction and the profundities of darkness. This big man, on the other hand, has mastered the laws of force and the laws of earth. Qin Feiyang said. This? Chu Yin and the others looked at each other. One of them actually grasped 2 supreme profundities? It's not only them. The middle-aged couple beside the white-clothed young man also each grasped 2 supreme profound meanings. As for the sovereign divine weapon, the white dragon sword, that we spoke of earlier, it is also in the hands of that young man. Now you know how strong the dragons are. Qin Feiyang smiled. You can still laugh? Elder Hua and the other 2 were speechless. Facing such a colossus, if it were anyone else, they would definitely be worried to death all day long. But this kid didn't seem to care at all. If you don't laugh, will you cry? If crying can solve the problem, I don't mind bawling my eyes out. Qin Feiyang shook his head with a smile. He finally pushed 3 jade boxes in front of the 3 and said with a smile, These are for you. For us. The 3 were startled. Chu Yin grabbed one of the jade boxes and asked suspiciously, What's this? You'll know when you see it. Qin Feiyang smiled. Frenzy, White-Eyed Wolf, Fire Lotus, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Changyuan were curious too, as Qin Feiyang didn't tell them about it in advance. Chu Yin slowly opened the jade boxes. A strong medicinal fragrance immediately burst out. followed by dragon-shaped core essences floating out from the jade boxes. Each pill had 7 dragon-shaped core essences. They were round and emitted a blurry glow. What kind of pill is this? Chu Yin was surprised. A pill that unlocks the door to potential. Qin Feiyang smiled. What? A pill that unlocks the door to potential? Apart from Chu Yin, Elder Hua and the Demon Hall leader were stunned too. Frenzy, Fire Lotus, and White-Eyed Wolf exchanged glances with one another with a smile in their eyes. The 3 of them were indeed worthy of Qin Feiyang's effort. Wang Chongyuan and Pei Tianhong exchanged glances with one another, and couldn't help but let out wry smiles. They had risked their lives to obtain the chance to unlock the door to potential, but the 3 of them had obtained all the pills without doing anything. Was this the difference between humans? However, there was nothing they could do. Although the 3 of them hadn't done anything, they had helped Qin Feiyang and the others greatly in the past. In fact, if it weren't for the Demon Hall supporting Qin Feiyang and the others, Qin Feiyang and the others wouldn't have been able to develop so smoothly in the Eastern continent. They deserved it. For Qin Feiyang to take out those medicinal pellets, it meant that he truly trusted the 3 of them. After a few breaths, Elder Hua and the Demon Hall leader came back to their senses and immediately stood up. Each of them grabbed a jade box and opened it. After a quick comparison, the pills in the 3 jade boxes were exactly the same. Elder Hua, are these really the pills that can unlock the door to potential? You stayed in the Black Tortoise world for the longest time, so you should have asked around in detail. Chu Yin asked in her heart with disbelief in her eyes. Qin Feiyang was actually willing to give them such precious pills? It was too unexpected. Elder Hua took out a potential pill and examined it carefully before putting it back. He then took out another potential pill and examined it carefully again. He took a deep breath and transmitted his voice. These are the pills that can unlock the door to potential. Although you don't recognize the other pills, you definitely aren't unfamiliar with the Shangqing Nature Pill. This is the pill that can unlock the door to potential in the Sovereign Realm. The 2 of them looked at the Shangqing Nature Pill in the jade boxes and didn't know what to say. You should know how shocking it would be if the pills that can unlock the door to potential were leaked. That's why I've been hiding it from you. Qin Feiyang smiled apologetically. It's fine, it's fine. Elder Hua waved his hand and couldn't calm down for a long time. Actually, they already knew. They wanted to ask Qin Feiyang previously, but Qin Feiyang went to the Yin Demon Land. They had no choice but to wait. However, they didn't expect that. He actually gave it to them when they met this time. It really caught them off guard. After a long time, Elder Hua took a deep breath and closed the jade boxes. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Is the first volume of the alchemy scripture in your hands?" I didn't know before, but after I asked Old Pei about the details of the first volume of the alchemy scripture and compared it with the handwriting in the second volume, we finally confirmed that the alchemy scripture in my hands is indeed the first volume of the alchemy scripture. Qin Feiyang said, "Then where did you get the first volume of the alchemy scripture?" The Demon Hall master asked. "The lower realm. The place where I was born and raised. And it's not a handwritten copy, it's the real thing." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. The 3 of them looked at each other, their faces full of bitter smiles. No wonder they couldn't find any news of the first volume of the alchemy scripture, after searching all the places in the Sky Cloud realm. It turned out that the first volume of the alchemy scripture had gone to the lower realm. It was really fate playing tricks on them. Why would a complete alchemy scripture be divided into 2 volumes? The most outrageous thing was that the first volume was thrown in the lower realm, and the second volume in the Sky Cloud realm. Without the first volume, what was the use of the second volume? After a while, the 3 of them calmed down and put away the jade boxes without being polite. I hope the 3 of you can help me keep this a secret. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Of course. The 3 of them nodded. They still had this bit of common sense. Once it was leaked, it would definitely attract countless people. For Qin Feiyang, there would be endless trouble. After being together for so long, they knew a little about Qin Feiyang's character. He was most afraid of trouble. Alright then. In the future, we will part ways for the time being. Qin Feiyang stood up and smiled. You're leaving just like that? The three of them were stunned. Why, you still can't bear to part with us? The madman laughed. Let's talk about you. Your strength is not much, but your face is really thick. Chuyin rolled her eyes. The madman laughed and said, Your face is not thick, but it's a little. What? Make it clear. Chuyin stared at the madman with an unfriendly expression, like a tiger that was about to go crazy. This, cough cough. I'm praising you. Beautiful, capable, and impeccable. Men will feel ashamed when they see you. But you really have to change. If you're so strong, be careful that you won't be able to get married in the future. After the madman said that, he took the last illusion form pill and threw it into his mouth. In the end, he ran out without looking back. Chuyin was quite happy at first. Beautiful, capable, these were all recognized. But when she heard the last sentence, she didn't feel good. He actually cursed her, that she wouldn't be able to get married. She was immediately annoyed. But seeing the madman run out, she didn't dare to chase after him. She could only gnash her teeth and say some harsh words. Looking at this scene, Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus couldn't help but shake their heads and laugh. No one would have thought that the dignified deputy hall master of the Demon Palace would have such a side. Fire Lotus, you go to the Black Tortoise realm first. Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Lotus and said, Okay. Fire Lotus nodded. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent Fire Lotus to the Black Tortoise realm. Then he looked at Elder Hua and the other two and said with a smile, Then we'll take our leave first. Be careful. Elder Hua nodded. I will. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly, took out an illusion form pill, and changed back to his previous appearance. Then he led White-Eyed Wolf and Pei Tianhong out of the VIP room. Sigh. I really didn't expect the situation in the Sky Cloud realm to become so complicated. Elder Hua shook his head and sighed. Yeah, the dragons haven't even officially stepped into the eastern continent, but I can't help but feel pressured. Chuyin nodded. Such a colossus was like a mountain pressing down on their heads. It made it hard for them to breathe. Don't think too much. According to Qin Feiyang, our demon palace shouldn't be in too much trouble. Little Yin, when we go back, immediately give the order. Whether it's the disciples, the demon palace, or the city lords, they have to behave. If anyone dares to cause trouble, then don't blame me for being merciless. A cold light flashed in the demon palace hall master's eyes. Understood. Chuyin nodded. Then let's go back. Hurry up and open the gate of potential. Comprehend the supreme profundities of the various laws. I have a feeling that Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan should have already grasped the two supreme profundities. The Demon Palace Hall Master said. This old man has the same feeling, because that pressure is too obvious. All along, our strength has been on par with theirs. Now we can't be suppressed by them. That would be embarrassing. Elder Hua smiled. Then, Chuyin opened a space-time teleportation channel and left. Chapter 34-25. Outside, when Qin Feiyang and the others landed and walked into the hall, everyone's gaze landed on them. Who is it? Why did Yi Miao place so much importance on them? Qin Feiyang and the madman returned to their previous appearances. The White-Eyed Wolf and Pei Tianhong were no exception. Yi Miao was waiting for Qin Feiyang and the others in the hall. When she saw Qin Feiyang and the others, she immediately went up and asked, Are you leaving now? Qin Feiyang nodded. What about the food and wine I prepared? Yi Miao frowned. You can eat. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Me. Yi Miao shook her head helplessly. I can't eat alone, but I know you guys are very busy, so I won't force you guys. Take care. You too. Qin Feiyang smiled and walked out of Tianyue building. Where are we going next? Wang Changyuan secretly asked. Qin Feiyang smiled. You can ask Senior Brother and the White-Eyed Wolf. They already have a plan in mind. Wang Changyuan was slightly stunned and couldn't help but turn to look at the madman and the White-Eyed Wolf. The White-Eyed Wolf glanced at Wang Changyuan and said indifferently, You can't even guess this? You are indeed not the same as us. I'm not a roundworm in your stomach. How could I guess? Wang Changyuan felt wronged. The madman transmitted his voice. Old Wang, let me ask you. Why did we say that we finally found the main person? Finding the main person means finding the main person. What else can there be? Wang Changyuan was suspicious. Your brain is not good. You have to think more. The madman shook his head. Wang Changyuan was even more puzzled. What exactly was it? Could he explain it all at once? The madman was speechless. He had already explained it so clearly, but he still couldn't understand. Pig brain. He said, of course it's to give them a taste of their own medicine. Giving him a taste of his own medicine? Wang Changyuan was taken aback. After pondering for a while, he asked, you mean we should also sneak attack that woman? Yes. The madman nodded and then chuckled. He sent a voice transmission. They think we are in the demon land, so they won't be on guard. Understood. Wang Changyuan nodded. These few people were indeed vengeful. But it was also quite interesting. The dragons had already suffered a great loss at their hands. If this sneak attack was successful, they would definitely be furious. Suddenly, the white-eyed wolf, who was lying on Qin Feiyang's shoulder, glanced at the crowd behind him and frowned slightly. What is it? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. It seems like someone is following us. The white-eyed wolf grumbled. Stalking? It can't be. Who would be so reckless? Qin Feiyang, madman, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Changyuan also secretly paid attention. Very soon, they discovered that someone was really following them. It was an inconspicuous thin man in his 40s. He was about 1.7 meters tall, and wore a simple black robe. His tracking skills were also extremely skilled. If not for the fact that Qin Feiyang and the others were experienced people, even if they bumped into this person, they wouldn't have thought that he was following them. Why would someone follow us? Could it be someone from the Demon Palace? Wang Changyuan was surprised. Impossible. Qin Feiyang shook his head. If the Demon Palace had something to do, there was no need to send someone to follow them. They could just say it directly. Is that someone from Tianyue building? Wang Changyuan asked again. That's even more impossible. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled faintly. No need to guess. When we catch him, the truth will naturally be revealed. Next, for people and one wolf strolled around the streets as if nothing had happened. They watched the bustling scene and walked towards the city gate. Behind them, the thin man's eyes flashed as he entered an alley. Seeing that there was no one around, he took out the divine sound transmission stone. Buzz! At that moment, the image of a middle-aged man appeared. Master, they're heading out of the city. The thin man said respectfully. They didn't notice us, right? The middle-aged man asked. No. The thin man shook his head. Well done. All right, I'll go out of the city and make some arrangements. Lure them over later. The location is at Blackwater Lake. The middle-aged man instructed as a cold light flickered in his eyes. Yes. The thin man replied and put away the divine sound transmission stone. He walked out of the alley and continued to follow Qin Feiyang and the others. About an hour later, Qin Feiyang and the others finally walked out of the city gate. When they saw that the thin man was still following them, they walked all the way into the mountains. Seeing this, the thin man's eyes flashed, and he quickly followed them. When they were far away from the city, the thin man suddenly attacked. An expanse of the power of law surged out and covered the sky as it charged towards Qin Feiyang and the others. Qin Feiyang and the others pretended to be shocked and turned around. You're courting death. Wang Changyuan was furious. The thin man turned around and fled in another direction. What's going on? Wang Changyuan was stunned. I think he's being instructed by someone to lure us to another place. Qin Feiyang pondered and said in a low voice. Preserve some strength and let him think that we're not strong enough. All right. Wang Changyuan nodded. The law of lightning appeared. He controlled his strength well and collided with the thin man's power of law. Puff! Wang Changyuan immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and took a few steps back. The thin man's cultivation wasn't weak. He was at the sovereign realm. However, compared to Wang Changyuan, he was too inferior. Wang Changyuan's acting was pretty good. When the thin man sensed the fluctuation behind him, he turned around to check Wang Changyuan's situation, and a cold smile appeared on his face. With such strength, He dared to provoke the Li family? He was courting death. You want to run after sneaking an attack on us? Chase. Qin Feiyang also pretended to be angry. With a roar, Wang Changyuan immediately led them and chased after the thin man. He controlled his speed well, and was slightly slower than the thin man. About a few hundred breaths later, the group went deep into the mountains, and a lake came into sight. The lake was about a few miles long. It was surrounded by mountains and old trees. This was the Black Water Lake. Although it was called the Black Water Lake, the lake water was extremely clear. Under the sunlight, there were layers of dazzling waves. When they flew to the center of the lake, the thin man's eyes flashed with a cold smile. He then stopped and turned around to look at Qin Feiyang and the others who were chasing after him. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. After flying above the lake, he raised his arm slightly, and Wang Changyuan stopped. Why did you sneak an attack on us? Qin Feiyang looked at the thin man and asked. Their current aura was exactly the same as when they entered the Heavenly Joy building. They had restrained their aura, and it was impossible to see their cultivation. Why? Haha. The thin man laughed loudly. His eyes were full of mockery as he said, because you offended someone you shouldn't have offended. As his voice fell, more than a dozen terrifying auras erupted. Splash! In the next moment, huge waves rose from the Blackwater Lake. More than a dozen people rushed out and surrounded Qin Feiyang and the others. Young master, you really have great foresight. As expected, you purposely led us here. Wang Changyuan laughed secretly. It's obvious. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and scanned the dozen people around him. There were a total of 13 people. The aura they exuded was quite powerful. 7 initial dominators, 4 initial dominators and 1 greater dominator. The remaining one. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and looked at the person with the weakest aura. It was a young man in purple. His face was filled with hatred and resentment. Wasn't this the young man who was called Young Master Li in the Heavenly Joy building? It's you. Frenzy, White-Eyed Wolf, and Pei Tianhong were also stunned. Yes, it's me. The killing intent in the young man's eyes wasn't concealed at all. What are you trying to say? Qin Feiyang frowned. What do you think? My Li clan is a first-rate clan in Ocean of Cloud City. It's only inferior to those extraordinary clans. You actually dared to humiliate me in public? You're courting death. The young man laughed ferociously. The Li clan is that formidable? Qin Feiyang was surprised, but his eyes were filled with amusement. Of course. The young man smiled proudly, and then he gazed at the middle-aged man. Father, don't kill them right away. I want to torture them properly, and let them have a taste of what it's like to live a life worse than death. All right. The middle-aged man nodded. This middle-aged man was the one who'd sent the message to the thin man. He was the violet-clothed young man's father, and the current patriarch of the Li clan. He was the only sovereign here at the Greater Dominator realm. The Li clan's patriarch sized up Qin Feiyang and the others, and then he gazed at the thin man and asked indifferently, how's their strength? It's nothing. He suffered a huge loss when our laws collided just now. The thin man gazed at Wang Changyuan and spoke with disdain. Wang Changyuan couldn't help but want to laugh when he heard this. A sovereign at the initial stage actually dares to say that a sovereign at the perfection sovereign realm, like me, isn't anything great? So that's how it is. The Li clan's patriarch smiled with sudden understanding, and then he gazed at Qin Feiyang and the others. You dare to humiliate my son in public with such little strength? Why don't you ask why we humiliated him? Said Qin Feiyang. It's not important. The Li clan's patriarch spoke indifferently. It's not important? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned, and then he asked, in other words, your Li clan doesn't distinguish right from wrong when dealing with something. So what if we do? The Li clan's patriarch laughed coldly and proudly. All right. If we encounter unreasonable people, then we can only use unreasonable methods. Qin Feiyang smiled and said indifferently, Brother Wang, beat them up. All right. Wang Changyuan nodded. Beat us up. The group of people couldn't help but laugh when they heard this. Boom. However, when Wang Changyuan released his aura without holding back, the group of people's expressions froze, and they were immediately stunned. This aura, why is it so strong? Do you really think that our strength is nothing? Wang Changyuan laughed mockingly. And the aura of a sovereign realm great perfection pressed down on the group of people like a torrent. This is a sovereign realm great perfection. The Li clan's patriarch immediately panicked. This is impossible. The thin man also looked at Wang Changyuan in disbelief. A bunch of ants dare to offend the young master. Wang Changyuan's gaze turned cold, and the group of people immediately knelt down uncontrollably. Chapter 34-26. The moment they knelt in the air, the Li family's patriarch and the others felt as if they had been hit in the head. Especially the skinny man. How could he be so strong? They were filled with regret. Even a Paragon sovereign realm expert had to respectfully address him as young master. What kind of existence was this young man? Do you want to know who we are? The madman looked at them with a mocking gaze. They instinctively nodded, but when they came back to their senses, the Li family's patriarch quickly shook his head. We don't want to know. Why? The madman looked at him with a mocking gaze. Because if you know, you'll definitely kill us. We were blind, please be magnanimous and spare our lives. We're willing to compensate for the trouble we've caused you. The Li family's patriarch said in panic. Kill us. Madman was taken aback for a moment before he laughed and said, You're quite enlightened. Spare us. The Li family's patriarch knelt in the air and kowtowed. If you don't want to know, then I'll let you know. I'll let you die in peace, and know who you shouldn't have offended. The madman took out an appearance-restoring pill, and placed it in his mouth. Then, he quickly recovered his true appearance under everyone's gazes. You are. The Li family's patriarch's eyes opened wide. Wasn't this the legendary madman? How could it be him? Who didn't know of the madman's name? Not only was his talent amazing, but he also had the Hall of Famers as his master. Impossible. My eyes must be playing tricks on me. The others shook their heads and didn't want to accept this fact. Wait. If this person was the madman, then wouldn't the young man beside him be? The group looked at Qin Feiyang in unison, and their faces were as pale as paper. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and consumed an illusion pill as well, recovering his true appearance. Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan exchanged glances and revealed their true appearances as well. Qin Feiyang, Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan. As a large family in Cloud Sea City, the Li family knew quite a bit about Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan. So, the Li family's patriarch was stunned on the spot. In his heart, he was terrified to the extreme. How did he provoke such a terrifying group of people? Tell me about it now. Who is it that I can't afford to offend? Madman smiled playfully. It's you, I'm sorry. We were wrong. Please give us a way out and give us a way out. The head of the Li family was filled with regret. Was he stupid? They actually came here to scheme against this group of people? Which one of these people wasn't in existence whose name shook the sky cloud realm? Even the Wolf King by Qin Feiyang's side was known by everyone. Do we look like such benevolent people? The white-eyed wolf snickered. The head of the Li family fell silent. Benevolence? That was just a joke. By now, everyone knew that the destruction of the Blood Hall was orchestrated by Qin Feiyang and the madman. Who didn't know that the reason why the Rogue Cultivator Alliance could rule the Western continent was because of these two people? What was even more terrifying was that everyone knew that Qin Feiyang had a sovereign divine weapon in his hand and mastered a divine art that was comparable to a sovereign divine weapon. How could they afford to offend him? A cold light flashed in the eyes of the head of the Li family. Gritting his teeth, he stood up and slapped the purple-clothed youth. Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. The lean man and the others also looked at him in astonishment. Father! The purple-clothed youth was also shocked and hurriedly shouted. What are you doing? What am I doing? It's all because of you, you unfilial son, causing trouble outside all day. The head of the Li family roared and slapped the head of the purple-clothed youth. Accompanied by a shrill scream, the purple-clothed youth's head exploded like a watermelon, and his divine soul was annihilated on the spot. The eyes of the lean man and the others trembled. This was killing his son to protect himself. Although it was a bit ruthless, it was understandable. After all, The opponent was Qin Feiyang, the madman in Pei Tianhong. If they didn't kill him, not only them, but the entire Li family would suffer. Because with the current status of Qin Feiyang and the others, they didn't need to personally make a move. Just a word from them would be enough to destroy the Li family. Wasn't the Zhao family the same in the past? Because Zhao Xiaojin had Qin Feiyang behind him, he had fallen to the point where no one cared about him. In these years, the Zhao family had been moving around, trying to improve their relationship, but no one helped them. Even the relatives of the Zhao family weren't willing to lend a helping hand. The reason was because of Qin Feiyang. In the current Eastern continent, who would dare to offend him? That would be courting death. Quite decisive. Qin Feiyang snickered. Is it useful? The madman sneered and looked at Wang Changyuan. Wang Changyuan understood, and the law of lightning rolled out, turning into terrifying lightning that instantly flooded the area. Don't. The Li family's patriarch and the others thought that after killing the purple-clothed youth, Qin Feiyang and the others would let them go. So when they saw Wang Changyuan make a move, they were caught off guard and hurriedly shouted. But it was useless. Lightning surged, destroying everything in all directions. The group of people screamed in pain, and their souls were destroyed one after another. This is what a spoiled brat is like. Because of a spoiled brat, the entire family is implicated. So in the future, if you have children, you must discipline them well. The white-eyed wolf looked at the madman and Qin Feiyang and said. The two of them looked at each other, and directly rolled their eyes at the white-eyed wolf. What about the Li family? Wang Changyuan asked. Forget about the Li family. The Li family's patriarch is dead, and they have lost their pillar. Sooner or later, they will be like the Zhao family. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and looked at the madman. Let's go to the entrance of the Yin demon land. Just like that, the madman was stunned. What else? Qin Feiyang asked. The madman said. No matter what, let's wait until the Horsetail whisk is repaired. The other party had a sovereign weapon. With their strength, even if their sneak attack succeeded, they might not be able to cause any actual damage to the other party. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and looked at the madman. Then, you go to the Western continent first, and explain to Master and the others about the dragons. Okay. The madman nodded and then said. But what old Hu said makes sense. After all, we are the Deputy Alliance leader, and the disciples of the Hall of Famers. If we don't think of a way to draw the line, the consequences will be unpredictable. Then, do you have any ideas? Qin Feiyang asked. Don't you have a lot of ideas? You still asked me. The madman pouted. I have thought about it. Just pretend to fall out with them. But to be honest, if we fall out with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance now, it will seem more deliberate. The dragons aren't stupid and aren't that easy to fool. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead. Fall out. The madman pondered for a while and shook his head. Right now, there doesn't seem to be a better way. There is. Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly flashed. The madman was slightly stunned and smiled. I know you have a lot of ideas. Tell me. The premise of falling out with them is that there needs to be a convincing reason. If we take the initiative to fall out with them, then it won't work. But if Master and the others fall out first, then it's a different story. Qin Feiyang smiled. They fall out first? The madman frowned. That's right. We can set up a trap. Let Master and the others pretend to want to steal our sovereign weapon and harm us. Qin Feiyang said. The madman was stunned and asked, You mean, we have to set up a trap? The reason they want to take us as disciples is to find a chance to steal our sovereign weapon? That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded. That's a convincing reason. But if that's the case, their reputation. The madman frowned. If this was the case, then the world would definitely spurn the vice leader and the Hall of Famers behind their backs. They even wanted to harm their own disciples. Although their reputation will be damaged, at least they can draw a clear line with us. Qin Feiyang said. Then it seems that we can only wrong them first. The madman pondered for a moment and said, How about this? You go to the Western continent first and ask if they are willing. Actually, there are other ways. For example, Master and the others can capture us and send us to the dragons. This way they can draw a clear line with us. Qin Feiyang said. Send us to the dragons? The madman White-Eyed Wolf, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Changyuan looked at each other. That's right. Just treat it as a kind of flattering attitude. At that time, the dragons will watch Master and the others and send us to them. At that time, not only will the dragons not find trouble with Master and the others, but they will also trust Master and the others. Qin Feiyang smiled. Hearing this, why do I feel that this method is more effective than the first one? The madman was stunned. Qin Feiyang said, in short, you go and ask them first. If they are willing, then we will make a detailed plan. Then what are you going to do? The madman asked. I will go to the exit of the Demon Land and see how many dragons came this time. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly. Okay. The madman nodded, opened a space-time rift and turned to leave. Let's go. Qin Feiyang also looked at the White-Eyed Wolf and smiled. The White-Eyed Wolf waved its claws and opened a space-time passage. Now the madman and the White-Eyed Wolf both grasped the law of space-time, so it was much more convenient than before. Because before, they had to rely on the space-time door or the snowflakes. Outside the Demon Land. The outside referred to the area outside the Demon Land. The black dragon had said that its nest was in the black cloud swamp in the outside area. Whoosh! In the sky above a canyon, a space-time rift appeared, and 3 people and 1 wolf silently walked out. It was Qin Feiyang and the others. Now they did not disguise themselves, because there was no need to. After coming out of the space-time rift, Qin Feiyang looked around and activated the concealment art. He took the White-Eyed Wolf and Pei Tianhong and flew towards the entrance of the Demon Land. His eyes flashed coldly, although Qin Feiyang looked relaxed on the surface, but in reality, he was more cautious. After all, the dragons of the Sky Cloud Realm and the dragons of the Ancient Realm were not on the same level. What they knew now was probably only the tip of the iceberg of the dragons. Chapter 34-27. About a moment later, the entrance to the Demon Land finally entered the line of sight of Qin Feiyang and the others. In front of the entrance, the ancient stone tablet was still standing. Qin Feiyang and the others stopped on a mountain not far away and scanned the entrance. They did not see the young man in white and the woman in black. Where were they? Chu Yunji had seen them when she came. It was impossible for them to leave in the blink of an eye. Look at that mountain peak. Suddenly, Pei Tianhong pointed to a mountain on the left. It was hundreds of feet high, and 3 figures could be seen standing on the cliff of the mountain peak. Qin Feiyang looked up and recognized at a glance that it was the young man in white and the middle-aged couple. Because they had activated the concealment technique, the 3 of them did not notice them. At this moment, they were also staring at the entrance of the Demon Land. Young master, I saw what you were looking for. Wang Changyuan's laughter suddenly sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. Qin Feiyang was stunned, looked at Wang Changyuan, and then looked in the direction Wang Changyuan was looking, only to see 3 figures standing on a mountain peak on the right. The leader was the woman in the black dress. The old man in black and the burly man in black were also standing behind the woman. Not bad looking. Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. Indeed. The White-Eyed Wolf nodded. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned, looked at the White-Eyed Wolf strangely, and said, Didn't you say that you wolves have a different appreciation level from us humans? The appreciation level can slowly evolve. Don't you understand? The White-Eyed Wolf despised. So you're saying that you're also interested in human women? Do you want me to help you look for one? Qin Feiyang laughed. Get lost. The White-Eyed Wolf glared at him, and then said, Besides, is she a human? Qin Feiyang was stunned, then patted his head and said, Yes, she's a divine dragon, and there's still a difference between us humans, but this is a good thing for you. Good thing. The White-Eyed Wolf was stunned. That's right. You're all beasts, you can combine. But after you combine and give birth to a child, will it be a wolf or a divine dragon? It needs to be investigated. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered. The corner of the ingrate's mouth twitched. He really wanted to curse, screw you. Wang Changyuan's sight. Brother, actually, you can really think about it. Think about it. You're just a wolf, the white-eyed wolf said furiously. It's not that I mean that, but it's the truth. In the eyes of the world, divine dragons are high and mighty divine beasts with noble bloodlines. But you wolves, to put it bluntly, are the synonym of insidious and lowly in the eyes of the world. Wang Changyuan secretly said, You're the insidious one, you're the lowly one. The white-eyed wolf glared at Wang Changyuan. I'm just trying to reason with you. If you're not convinced, go and find a dragon as your wife, and prove it to everyone. Wang Changyuan said. Provoke me? The white-eyed wolf raised his eyebrows. Yes, I'm provoking you. Do you want to be fooled? Wang Changyuan laughed. Do you think I'm that childish? The white-eyed wolf looked disdainful, but there was an inexplicable light in his eyes when he looked at the woman in the black dress. Look at this wolf cub's eyes. He's not really going to find a dragon as his wife, right? Wang Changyuan glanced at the white-eyed wolf and secretly said to Qin Feiyang, Isn't this very fun? Qin Feiyang secretly laughed. Haha. Wang Changyuan also secretly laughed. Let's look for other dragons. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. Not long later, they found another 3 people on the other side of the mountain. Similarly, the leader was a youth in blood-red clothes. Behind him stood a man and a woman. Their auras were also unfathomable. It seems that every prince and princess has 2 super strong experts following them. Wang Changyuan muttered. This is the benefit of having a strong background. No matter where you go, there are people protecting you. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. But you have to admit that people like them who are often protected have limited future achievements. Pei Tianhong transmitted his voice. Not all of them. There are always a few who stand out from the crowd. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Next, they found a few more groups of people. The way these princes and princesses got along seemed to be a bit thought-provoking. Logically speaking, since they were all out to hunt them, they should work together. But now they were all in one place, and kept a distance from each other. It seemed that the competition within the dragons was quite big. A total of 7 groups of people. 3 princesses. For princes, 14 complete Dominator Realm experts who have mastered 2 types of profound meaning. They can't be underestimated. Wang Changyuan secretly sighed. There should still be people who haven't come out yet. Qin Feiyang whispered. If the dragons of the Sky Cloud Realm were the same as the dragons of the Ancient Realm, then the dragons of the Sky Cloud Realm should also have 10 major races. For example, Golden Dragon, Black Dragon, White Dragon, Silver Dragon, Blood Dragon, Fire Dragon, Sword Dragon, etc. Each race should have a prince or princess. In other words, there should be a total of 10 princes and princesses. Indeed, they couldn't be underestimated. Young Master, could it be that these princes and princesses all have a Dominator divine weapon? Pei Tianhong suddenly thought of something and transmitted his voice. Qin Feiyang's expression stiffened. If that was the case, then they would be in big trouble. If each of them had a Dominator divine weapon, how could they play? They should run for their lives as soon as possible. I didn't see the golden-haired youth. I heard from the fire dragon that it was a golden dragon, and was addressed as His Highness. Then I think it should be the prince of the 5-clawed golden dragon race. We can't let this person go so easily, Wang Changyuan said. Indeed, I didn't see him. Qin Feiyang nodded. After pondering for a while, he suddenly frowned. What's wrong? Wang Changyuan looked at him suspiciously. I suddenly remembered that when the golden spear appeared, the golden-clothed youth and the fire dragon should have been watching us. Could this golden spear be directly related to them? Qin Feiyang frowned. You mean that they were the ones who sent the golden spear to save the fire dragon? Wang Changyuan asked. That's what I think. In other words, that golden spear is most likely the golden-clothed youth's Dominator divine weapon. Qin Feiyang said. Then according to what you said, these princes and princesses all have a Dominator divine weapon? Wang Changyuan frowned. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and shook his head. We can't rule out this possibility. It seems that we can't be careless in the future. Wang Changyuan sighed. If it was just these princes and princesses and their followers, Qin Feiyang, and the others wouldn't be too afraid. But if they all had Dominator divine weapons, it would be a different story. Qin Feiyang smiled suspiciously and said, Actually, I don't care about these princes and princesses. Then who do you care about? Wang Changyuan and Pei Tianhong looked at him puzzled. White-eyed Wolf looked at Qin Feiyang and pondered for a moment. The Ice Dragon's son and daughter? That's right. Back then, both the Ice Dragon's son and the Ice Dragon's daughter made us suffer. Of course, compared to before, this Prince of the Dragons is more difficult to deal with than the princess. However, this prince's character is also above that of the princess. Qin Feiyang smiled. Hearing you say that, I'm looking forward to meeting this pair of siblings. Pei Tianhong looked at the two people and the wolf and said, As the Ice Dragon's son and daughter, their status is definitely above these princes and princesses. We probably won't be able to meet them until the end. Wang Changyuan smiled. Let's take it slow. There's no rush. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and led the two people and the white-eyed wolf to a distant mountain peak to silently monitor the group. Time slowly passed. About an hour later, the divine message stone suddenly vibrated. It should be senior brother. You guys keep an eye here first. I'll go to the Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyang instructed Pei Tianhong and the white-eyed wolf before appearing above the Devil's Land and taking out the divine message stone. Buzz! At that moment, Madman's shadow appeared. There was also the deputy leader, the leader, and the Hall of Famers. Greetings, Master. Greetings, Leader Elder Qi. Qin Feiyang bowed to them one by one. You still know that this old man is your master? When we separated, what did I tell you? Before going to the Demon Land, tell us. In the end, you ran away without saying a word. In your eyes, do you still have me as your master? The Vice Alliance Master immediately scolded him to his face. Ha! Qin Feiyang laughed dryly. This feeling of being cared for was really good. What are you laughing at? Looking at you makes me angry. The deputy leader glared fiercely at Qin Feiyang. Then don't look at me. No one forced you. The Hall of Famers teased. What does it have to do with you when we're talking? Do you want to interrupt? The deputy leader glared at the Hall of Famers again, with a displeased face. What a temper, you can't even speak properly. Feiyang, what did I tell you in the beginning? Before acknowledging a master, you have to look at his character first. Now you see, your cheap master's character is not good. The Hall of Famers looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Cheap master? The deputy leader's mouth twitched. Why didn't he say that he picked up a master for free? The leader shook his head and smiled. Looking at the two of them, he said, Okay, let's get down to business. Hearing this, the deputy leader and the Hall of Famers' expressions immediately became heavy. They looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Is what little madman said true? Qin Feiyang nodded. I really didn't expect it. There is actually such a terrifying force hidden in our sky cloud realm. The deputy leader shook his head and sighed. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Little madman has already said your plan. As long as we can protect the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, it's okay for us to suffer a little. Then you agree to set a trap? Qin Feiyang asked. The deputy leader nodded and said with a wry smile, We can't think of a better way. You can go ahead and arrange it. We will fully cooperate. Thank you, Master. Qin Feiyang was touched. This was the trust in him. No matter what he did, he would unconditionally support him. Chapter 34-28. The Alliance Master thought for a bit, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Madman also told us about your plan, but I personally prefer the second one. Why? Qin Feiyang looked at the Alliance Master with a confused expression. Because if we curry favor with the dragons, we can protect the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, and also get closer to the dragons and gain their trust. This way, we can easily understand the dragons' background. And as long as we gain their trust, we will have a chance to infiltrate their inner circle. For example, if they have any plans against you, we can tell you in advance, so you can prepare for it, the Alliance Master said. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. At first, I also thought so, but now I don't dare to do it. Why? The Alliance Master was confused. Qin Feiyang said, Because now, if you really capture us and send us to them, I don't have much confidence in escaping from their hands. You don't have confidence? The Alliance Master was stunned. That's right. I'm currently near the exit of the Demon territory. Currently, there are a total of 7 princes and princesses, and each of them has 2 super strong people by their side. And I've discussed with Pei Tianhong and the others. We suspect that each of these princes and princesses might have a ruler weapon. If that's the case, then once we start this plan, we'll be sending ourselves to our deaths. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. When he said this plan, he didn't think that each of these people would have a ruler weapon. Each of them, the Alliance Master and the others looked at each other, their eyes full of shock. Even Madman couldn't help but frown. If each of them has a ruler weapon, then if they really carry out the second plan, the possibility of escaping from the dragons is really low. Qin Feiyang pondered for a bit, then said, "How about this? We'll use the first plan, but we'll have to change it a little." Speak, the Alliance Master, and the others looked at Qin Feiyang. Right now we will ambush the dragons' people. At that time, we will pretend that we are no match for them. Then, we will go to the Western continent and ask for your help. Once we reach the Western continent, you will set a trap to kill us and steal our sovereign divine weapon. And the bigger the mess, the better. As for the future, I believe that the dragons will definitely go to the Western continent to look for you. If they ask you to do anything, you must obey them unconditionally. And because you plotted against us, I believe that you can slowly gain their trust. Of course, there's no need to force it. What I need is not for you to infiltrate the dragons and help us gather information, but for you to ensure your own safety. To put it simply, I don't want to see you put yourself in danger. Please believe in me, senior brother Old Pei Old Wang, and I can solve these problems. Qin Feiyang said. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, the Alliance Master and the other 2 were deeply moved. Even now he was still thinking for them. This kid was their blessing. All right, I'll listen to you. The vice leader nodded. All right then. Senior brother, you can come over first. Qin Feiyang smiled and gave Madman a coordinate. I'll be right there. Madman nodded and turned off the voice transmission stone. He looked at the Alliance Master and the other 2 and laughed. This might be the last time we meet in public. Don't make it sound like we're parting forever. The Hall of Famers glared at him, then said apologetically, "It's also because I'm useless. I can't even protect my own disciple." Don't say that. Humans aren't omnipotent. You don't have to worry too much. In short, as long as you guys are fine, we can stay outside and deal with the dragons with peace of mind. Right, there's also Zhua Tianxing, Lu Jingyuan and Elder Yu. You must protect them. I don't want Xian to be sad. Madman said. I will. The Hall of Famers nodded. All right, I'm leaving. Madman glanced at the 3 of them, took a deep breath, opened a space-time teleportation channel, and walked in without looking back. Sigh. May the heavens protect them, and let them pass through this calamity. When the space-time teleportation channel disappeared, the Hall of Famers looked up at the sky and sighed. The Vice Alliance Master also silently prayed in his heart. The heavens help the worthy. You guys don't have to worry. Just as Madman said, the fact that we the elders are safe is the greatest support we can give them. The Alliance Master patted the 2 of them on the shoulder and smiled. The Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers looked at each other, and a smile gradually appeared on their faces. The proudest thing he had ever done in his life was probably to have these 2 disciples. The Demon land. Not long later, Madman came and immediately asked, "Where are they?" Wang Changyuan pointed at the hiding place of the 7 groups of people. So many princes and princesses came out. They really think highly of us. Madman chuckled. Schwa. Qin Feiyang also came out of the Black Tortoise world. How long will the Horsetail Whisk take? Madman asked. I just asked 10 days. Qin Feiyang smiled. Madman nodded and said, That's quite fast. Let's go to the Black Tortoise world first and comprehend the laws? Sure. Qin Feiyang nodded. During the few months in the Demon land, whenever he was free, he would ask Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan about the mysteries of the power of laws. Therefore, he had a deep understanding of the war law, strength law, wind law, and even the light law. He was confident that he could comprehend the fourth profound of the four laws in a short period of time. As expected, after entering the Black Tortoise world, he comprehended the fourth profound of the four laws in less than 5,000 years. 5,000 years in the Black Tortoise world was only 5 days outside. And Madman was the same. The war law, darkness law, and light law had all stepped into the fourth profound. As for the white-eyed wolf, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Changyuan, they naturally stayed outside to keep an eye on the princesses and princes. In the blink of an eye, Black Tortoise world, another 5,000 years, Qin Feiyang and Madman were both trying to comprehend the fifth profound of the war law, because the war law was relatively more useful to them right now. After all, after clashing with the dragons, bloody battles were unavoidable. With the war law, they would have a higher chance of success. And Qin Feiyang actually had another goal, which was to raise the level of the battle character art. Once the battle symbol art was upgraded to the supreme grade godly art level, coupled with the law of war, the flame of life, and the healing ability of the purple gold dragon blood, he would basically have an immortal body. And it wasn't just Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan who taught them these mysteries. Elder Hua and the others often explained them, and their comprehension abilities were outstanding. They all felt that the fifth profound was close at hand. However, even if the profound of the laws were close at hand, it couldn't be measured with normal eyes. Clang! On the 10th day, the horsetail whisk came out of the source land. Qin Feiyang and Madman both came out of seclusion and walked out of the ancient castle. Looking at the perfect horsetail whisk, a smile appeared on their faces. The source energy was indeed extraordinary. If they relied on the horsetail whisk to repair itself, it would take at least 100 to 200,000 years. But now, it had only been half a month since they left the Een Demon land. Half a month outside was 15,000 years in the Black Tortoise world. It was 10 to 20 times faster. Let's go. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The horsetail whisk turned into a stream of light and entered Qin Feiyang's Qi Si. Immediately, the two appeared at the peak of the mountain. How is it? Madman looked at Pei Tianhong and the white-eyed wolf and asked. There's no movement. I didn't see any other princes or princesses coming out of the Een Demon land. The white-eyed wolf shook his head. Madman laughed. They think that we are still in the Een Demon land, so those princes and princesses that haven't appeared should be looking for us inside. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then who is our target now? The white-eyed wolf asked. Target? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He glanced at the 7 princes and princesses, and finally locked his eyes on the woman in the black dress. He smiled and said, Of course it's her. Hey! The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Madman glanced at the white-eyed wolf and said suspiciously, Brother Wolf, why do I feel that something is wrong with your eyes? Is there? The white-eyed wolf was stunned. There is. Madman nodded and looked at the woman in the black dress. Look at the way you look at that woman. It seems a little different. Qin Feiyang, Wang Changyuan, and Pei Tianhong looked at each other, and also looked at the white-eyed wolf. Could it be that this wolf cub was really interested in that woman? Cough cough. The white-eyed wolf coughed dryly, as if he was hiding something. Brother is just thinking that if I can take in a divine dragon as a pet, it should be very cool. Pet. Qin Feiyang and the other 3 looked at each other, extremely speechless. It was too extravagant to take a divine dragon as a pet. All right, let's hurry up and take it down in one fell swoop. The white-eyed wolf urged, his eyes flashing fiercely. Since you can't wait, then let's go. Qin Feiyang's eyes also flashed. With a thought, he activated the concealment art, and the group disappeared from the mountain peak. Chapter 34-29. At the peak of the mountain, the woman in the black dress looked at the entrance of the Een Devil land. From the beginning to the end, she did not say a word, and there was no expression on her face. From afar, she looked like a human-shaped statue. The black-robed old man and the burly man behind her were also silent. However, there was a trace of fierce light in their eyes. as if there was a beast lurking in their bodies, giving people a sense of crisis. Suddenly, the woman in the black dress frowned slightly and turned her head to look behind her. "What's wrong?" The black-robed old man and the burly man looked at the woman in the black dress suspiciously. "Why do I feel like there's a gaze spying on us?" The woman in the black dress frowned. "Spying?" The two were stunned and turned to look. "There was nothing. Is it an illusion?" The woman in the black dress murmured, her gaze sweeping the void, ready to release her divine sense to search. Boom! However, at the same time that she released her divine sense, there was a deafening explosion as a terrifying aura surged out. Following closely, just beside the three of them, a horsetail whisk appeared out of thin air, carrying a monstrous power, crazily attacking the three of them. The three of them suddenly changed color. It was actually a sovereign divine weapon. One had to know. The horsetail whisk was very close to the three of them. It was almost only 2 to 3 meters. At this distance, even those who mastered the instant time could not dodge it. Not to mention, it was such a sudden attack. "Your Highness, be careful." The black-robed old man and the burly man instinctively attacked, but they ignored their own strength. With their strength, they wanted to block the sovereign divine weapon? No doubt it was a fool's dream. Ah! With a scream, the burly man in black died on the spot, his body and soul destroyed. A super expert had fallen just like that. Was it worth it? Definitely not. Because if it was a head-on battle, even if it was Wang Changyuan now, it would be very difficult to kill him. But there was no other way. This was the power of a sovereign divine weapon. In front of a sovereign divine weapon, everything was like an ant. At the same time, the black-robed old man was also blasted out. His physical body shattered in the void, leaving only his divine soul. Even his divine soul had suffered a fatal injury, broken beyond recognition. Although he had mastered 2 profound meanings, one of which was the strongest law, it was meaningless in the face of a sovereign divine weapon. There was nothing a sovereign weapon couldn't destroy, unless it was a dominator's weapon. A sovereign weapon? At this moment, the other princesses and princes who were hiding nearby finally reacted and looked over in surprise. That's it. It's Qin Feiyang's sovereign divine weapon. When enemies meet, their eyes blaze with hatred. As soon as the white-robed young man saw the horsetail whisk, he roared angrily, and his killing intent surged out. Clang! The white dragon sword appeared at the first moment, and with a world-destroying sharpness, it charged towards the horsetail whisk. Qin Feiyang's sovereign weapon? Aren't they in the Yin Devil land? When the others heard this, they were all bewildered. When did this group of people leave the Yin Devil land? By the time they came back to their senses, the princes and princesses had already brought their followers and were charging over aggressively. Look at the horsetail whisk again. After killing the black-clothed man and severely injuring the black-clothed old man, he continued to attack the black-clothed woman. The woman in the black dress also appeared extremely flustered at this moment. She didn't expect Qin Feiyang's sovereign divine weapon to attack her from behind. The woman in the black dress was about to die. However, at this moment, a black light suddenly appeared around the woman in the black dress. Immediately, accompanied by a loud clang, a black bronze mirror flew out from her body and floated above her head. The sovereign divine weapon automatically protected its owner. This bronze mirror was about the size of an adult's palm. It was completely black, and there were 2 black dragons engraved on it. It looked like 2 dragons playing with a pearl. As the bronze mirror appeared, rays of black light fell and instantly formed a barrier that enveloped the woman in the black dress. Boom! The horsetail whisk hit the barrier, but it didn't break it. This is a sovereign divine weapon. Seeing this scene, Qin Feiyang and the others' eyes trembled. This woman indeed had a sovereign divine weapon in her hands. Could it be that these princes and princesses all had a sovereign divine weapon? As the horsetail whisk and the bronze mirror collided, the invisible state of Qin Feiyang and the others was finally broken, and they immediately appeared from the void. When the woman in the black dress saw the bronze mirror appear, she also calmed down. Then, she looked at Qin Feiyang and the others with murderous intent in her eyes. Go! Qin Feiyang didn't hesitate and secretly shouted to Madman. Originally, he wanted to kidnap the woman in the black dress as a bargaining chip, but looking at the current situation, Qin Feiyang really gave up on this idea, because Bai Longjin had already attacked. Coupled with this ancient mirror, the horsetail whisk alone couldn't match up to them. Not to mention, the other princes and princesses also charged over. If they really had a sovereign divine weapon, then once they were surrounded, even if a god descended to the mortal world, he wouldn't be able to save them. Hearing Qin Feiyang shout, Madman immediately opened a space-time transmission channel without any hesitation. Immediately afterward, 4 people and 1 wolf ran into the space-time channel without looking back. The horsetail whisk released a monstrous power, sending the woman in the black dress and the bronze mirror flying. It also turned in the air and rushed into the space-time channel like a bolt of lightning. Don't run if you have the guts, Bai Longjin roared. Back in the inner area, he was tricked by Qin Feiyang and the others, so in his heart, he had already listed Qin Feiyang and the others as a target to kill. So now, seeing Qin Feiyang and the others enter the space-time channel, he was extremely anxious and angry. Are you waiting for death? Are you stupid or are we stupid? Let's meet again if fate wills it. The white-eyed wolf's voice came from the space-time channel. Damn it! The woman in the black dress also had a frosty expression at this moment. Her thick black hair fluttered without wind, and her entire body was emitting a bone-piercing cold current. We can't let them go. Suddenly, she stared at the bronze mirror and coldly shouted. The bronze mirror immediately shook in the void and shot out a black divine light, like a bolt of lightning, into the space-time channel. At the same time, the white dragon sword also slashed toward the space-time channel with thousands of sword chi. As long as this space-time channel was destroyed, Qin Feiyang and the others' teleportation could be interrupted. The 2 sovereign divine weapons attacked, and the space-time channel collapsed on the spot. However, Qin Feiyang and the others did not fall out of the void. Obviously, they had been teleported away. Bastard! The woman in the black dress clenched her hands and looked at the soul of the old man in black with a gloomy face. Before the official battle, one of her 2 followers was dead and the other was injured. For her it was a great shame. The most hateful thing was, she was clearly waiting here for Qin Feiyang and the others, but in the end, she was schemed against by Qin Feiyang and the others, and suffered a big setback. At the same time, the young man in white and the other princesses and princes also had ugly expressions. In the past, they were very confident that they could definitely wait for Qin Feiyang and catch Qin Feiyang and the others off guard. But in the end, they were caught off guard by Qin Feiyang and the others. As the princes and princesses of the dragons, how could they bear such a failure? They all felt that they were severely humiliated by Qin Feiyang and the others. Where did they come from? Why didn't we notice at all? The followers of the princes and princesses were also frowning. This was completely beyond their expectations. Wait, could it be? Suddenly, an old woman's eyes trembled and her face was full of horror. What? Everyone looked at the old woman. If I'm not wrong, they should have taken a detour to the southern continent, and then opened the space-time channel from the southern continent to return to the eastern continent. The old woman said in a deep voice. Hearing this, the group of people trembled. If that was the case, didn't it mean that Qin Feiyang and the others had already expected that they would be waiting here? Amazing! They beat us at our own game, circled back from the southern continent, and caught us off guard from behind. These people really can't be underestimated. An old man in green said. Not only was there a trace of shock on his old face, but there was also a trace of admiration. It was rare to see a young man with such sensitivity, judgment, and the courage to sneak attack them, and so good at scheming. Then what should we do next? A young man in red asked. Everyone was silent. Hee hee, suddenly, a bell-like laughter rang out. The princes and princesses looked at a silver-haired woman and frowned slightly. The silver-haired woman looked at the white-clothed young man and the black-dressed woman. She giggled and said, First, Brother Xiaobai was fooled. Now it's second sister who suffered a great loss. This Qin Feiyang is really interesting. Hearing this, The young man in white and the woman in black's face suddenly sank. Don't gloat, okay? Even if you can't help it, you should cover it up a little. After all, we're brothers and sisters, you have to save face. The young man in red laughed and glanced at the young man in white, and the woman in black, with a trace of ridicule in his eyes. Brother Shui, I'm not gloating. I'm just feeling sorry for them. The silver-haired woman sighed and looked harmless. Feeling sorry for them? The young man in red was slightly stunned. He looked at the silver-haired woman with a trace of disdain in his eyes. The silver-haired woman didn't care at all. She looked at the woman in black and smiled. We're going to enter the eastern continent and continue to hunt down Qin Feiyang and the others. But second sister, don't you want to go back to the dragon's nest first? Why should I go back to the dragon's nest? The woman in black was expressionless. Her black hair fluttered in the wind, like an ice fairy. Of course I'm going back to find help. Look, one of your followers is dead and the other is injured. In your current situation, if you enter the eastern continent, it won't be you who will hunt down Qin Feiyang and the others. It will be Qin Feiyang and the others who will hunt you down. The silver-haired woman laughed. You, the woman in black clenched her fists. The anger on her face was obvious. The silver-haired woman looked at the woman in black and asked, Second sister, why are you angry? I'm doing this for your own good. No need. Mind your own business. The woman in black took a deep breath and said coldly. She then turned to the old man in black and asked, Can you do it? No problem. The old man in black nodded and smiled. Let's go. The woman in black waved her hand, and the bronze mirror disappeared in her body. She then led the old man in black and disappeared into the mountains ahead without looking back. Second sister really likes to flaunt her superiority. The young man in red shook his head. You all know second elder sister's temper. You'd better shut up. The young man in white glanced at the silver-haired woman and the young man in red and left with the middle-aged couple. Can she hunt down Qin Feiyang just because she has a bad temper? The young man in red smiled disdainfully and left with the two old men in red. The other princes and princesses looked at each other, and one after another, they disappeared into the vast mountains like lightning with their followers. Chapter 34:30. The two white-haired old women standing behind the silver-haired woman looked at the departing figures with helplessness. Then, the two of them looked at the silver-haired woman and sighed. Princess, can't you be merciful? After all, we're all of the same race. Same race? The silver-haired woman let out a bell-like laugh, turned to look at the two of them, and asked, Do you believe your own words? The two old women fell silent. Among us dragons, there has never been any feelings of kinship. Scheming, double-dealing, and harming each other. This is the true state of the dragons. I'm just more honest. I say whatever I think, unlike them, who keep everything in their hearts and wear a disguise all day long. The silver-haired woman's face was full of ridicule. All right. The two old women nodded. Although it was cruel, it was the truth. Kindness and kindness could not survive among the dragons. Let's go. Let's go and meet Qin Feiyang and his group. I want to see if they have 3 heads and 6 arms. The silver-haired woman giggled like a little elf. The two old women looked at each other, shook their heads helplessly, and left with the silver-haired woman. Back to Qin Feiyang and the others. Tianfeng City, outside the city above a mountain. 4 people and 1 wolf stood against the wind. The Horsedale whisk floated in the air, casting down a divine light to protect them. If not for the protection of the Horsedale whisk, the divine light released by the bronze mirror would have been enough to kill them, because that divine light was aimed at them. The bronze mirror, the white dragon sword, and the golden spear. These are the 3 rulers' divine weapons. Such a lineup is enough to compete with us. Just how terrifying is the foundation of the dragons? Wang Changyuan whispered with a solemn expression. Although they had killed the black-clothed man and severely injured the black-clothed old man, they were not happy at all. Their hearts felt heavy, as if there was a huge rock pressing down on them. This was because they only had the Horsedale whisk, the ancient castle, and the slaughter domain. In total, they only had 3 sovereign weapons. Qin Feiyang let out a long sigh. He looked at the madman's trio and the white-eyed wolf and sighed. It seems that we can only outsmart the dragons from now on, and not fight them head-on. Yes. The 3 men and 1 wolf nodded. They were no match for the dragons in a head-on clash. Judging from the current situation, it was very likely that each of the princes and princesses had a ruler's weapon. If they were to fight them head-on, they would have no chance of winning. No, he could only be abused. Therefore, these princes and princesses had to be dealt with one by one. As long as these princes and princesses were not of one mind, they would have a chance. Pei Tianhong hesitated for a moment before looking at Qin Feiyang. Young master, I have a question that I have been pondering for a long time. I can't hold it in any longer. Can you answer it for me? What is it? Qin Feiyang looked at him in confusion. Pei Tianhong asked. Why do the dragons keep saying that you have some purple gold dragon bloodline? That's right. Purple gold dragon bloodline. Only the legendary purple gold divine dragon has it. You are a human. How can you have purple gold dragon bloodline? Besides, we have been together for so long and have seen your bloodline power. Not to mention purple gold dragon bloodline. You don't even have the aura of a divine dragon. Wang Changyuan also said, his face full of confusion. So it's this. Qin Feiyang suddenly smiled, but he didn't immediately answer. After pondering for a moment, he looked at the two and asked, Then answer my question first. Is there a purple gold divine dragon in the sky cloud realm? There shouldn't be. The two looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. Really? Qin Feiyang asked. There are very few legends about the purple gold divine dragon, let alone others. In any case, we have never heard of a purple gold divine dragon. Of course, we don't know, but it doesn't mean others don't know. For example, this dragon, purple gold divine dragon, is also a divine dragon. I believe they must know something. Pei Tianhong said. I also know that dragons will definitely know something about the purple gold divine dragon. But with our current relationship with them, will they tell us? Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. He was now wondering if the dragons of the sky cloud realm would be the purple gold divine dragon. However, from the attitude of the golden-clothed youth, when he talked about the purple gold divine dragon, it seemed that he didn't like the purple gold divine dragon very much. This was a bit worth pondering. They were both dragons, but why would the golden-clothed youth as a golden dragon dislike the purple gold divine dragon so much? Young master, what about your purple gold dragon bloodline power? Pei Tianhong looked at Qin Feiyang expectantly. He couldn't help but be curious. Qin Feiyang looked at Pei Tianhong, and then looked at Wang Changyuan. He smiled and said, I do have the purple gold dragon bloodline power. What? The two were stunned. There really was such a thing. But why didn't they see it? Qin Feiyang said, You didn't see it because my purple gold dragon bloodline was covered up. Covered up? The two were stunned. That's right. Not only me, my ancestor Qin Batian, and my younger brother in the lower realm, also have the power to awaken the purple gold dragon bloodline. It's just that when I was in the ancient realm, in order to avoid the pursuit of the dragons, my ancestor Qin Batian spent a lot of energy and effort to develop a pill that can cover up the purple gold dragon bloodline. So now my ancestor's bloodline power looks no different from ordinary people. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. So that's how it is. The two suddenly understood, and a trace of admiration crept onto their faces. To be able to develop such a pill, this person called Qin Batian was really a shocking talent. Why did you awaken the purple gold dragon bloodline power? Wang Changyuan was suspicious. I don't know either. Although the bloodline of the Qin clan can be said to be flourishing, from ancient times until now, only the three of us have awakened the purple gold dragon blood. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Not necessarily. After all, we've been away from the great Qin Empire for so long. Who knows if someone else has awakened the purple gold dragon bloodline? White-eyed wolf interrupted. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback, but he nodded and smiled. Of course. I also hope that more descendants of the Qin clan can awaken the purple gold dragon bloodline. Qin clan? Pei Tianhong muttered. Pei Tianhong pondered for a moment and said with surprise. Young master, Could it be that the bloodline of the Qin clan is the offspring left behind by the purple gold divine dragon and human? Huh. Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Because there's no other explanation. If you are the purple gold divine dragon, then there's no other reason. But the problem now is that you are all real humans. Humans have the purple gold dragon bloodline power. The only explanation is that you are the descendants of the purple gold divine dragon and human. Pei Tianhong analyzed. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, Actually, I also thought of this before, but before I get confirmation, I can't directly come to a conclusion. Besides, my ancestor has already gone to look for the mystery of his origins. Where to find it? Pei Tianhong was suspicious. In the sky cloud realm, Qin Feiyang said. Then I don't think there will be any results. After all, Old Wang and I know more about the sky cloud realm than your ancestor. If even we don't know, it's even more impossible for your ancestor to find out. Pei Tianhong said. Not necessarily. Just like the dragons, you have been in the sky cloud realm for so many years, and you didn't know about them. But now we found them. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Pei Tianhong was taken aback and nodded with a smile. That's right, after all. You are not ordinary people. What's unusual? We all have one nose and two eyes. What's the difference? The fact that we were able to find the dragon race was all destined. Qin Feiyang smiled. It's something that's destined, Pei Tianhong whispered. That's right. Small beast and ice dragon have been watching me. Fire dragon has always wanted to kill me. Similarly, I also want to kill them. I am also looking for them. So in the end, no matter what, I will meet them. After meeting them, I will naturally find the dragons of the sky cloud realm. To be more specific, this is actually a kind of karma. Small beast, ice dragon, fire dragon, and me, we are tied together by karma. Perhaps this is the so-called fate. No matter where I go, I can't escape from their entanglement. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Hearing this, Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan couldn't help but deeply agree. Karma, fate. These things, although ethereal and untouchable, they actually exist between every living being. Wait. Karma, fate. Qin Feiyang seemed to have comprehended something as he lowered his head thoughtfully. Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan, Frenzy, and White-Eyed Wolf all looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. What's going on? Why did he suddenly become silent? The White-Eyed Wolf raised his paw and waved it in front of Qin Feiyang. He found that Qin Feiyang didn't react at all. Looking at Qin Feiyang's eyes, there seemed to be mysterious runes flashing in his eyes. Don't touch him. Pei Tianhong seemed to have thought of something, as he quickly pulled the White-Eyed Wolf and transmitted his voice. What's wrong? The White-Eyed Wolf was shocked. Pei Tianhong thought to himself, he should have entered some kind of epiphany state. He was afraid of disturbing Qin Feiyang. Epiphany? The White-Eyed Wolf and Frenzy froze for a moment before their faces were filled with envy and jealousy. This guy, he actually entered an epiphany state again. Thinking about other people's lives. It was rare for them to have an epiphany. But this guy, entering an epiphany for no reason. How could it be so easy? This bastard, he should be the chosen one, right? He had invincible luck. Otherwise, how could it be so easy? It really made one jealous. Protect the young master. Don't be disturbed at this time. Pei Tianhong looked at Wang Changyuan. Understood. Wang Changyuan nodded. Immediately, the two of them rose into the air and stood in the air, scanning the surrounding mountains and rivers with vigilance. The horsetail whisk was still floating above Qin Feiyang's head. Strands of divine light descended, silently protecting Qin Feiyang. Chapter 34-31. Time flashed by. Half a day passed. The mysterious runes in Qin Feiyang's eyes seemed to be gradually changing. At the same time, an obscure aura quietly spread out from Qin Feiyang's body. At first, if one didn't sense it carefully, they wouldn't be able to feel it. As time passed, the aura became more obvious. This seems to be cause and effect power. Pei Tianhong muttered. Not good. Right now, young master's consciousness has completely entered a state of enlightenment. He himself can't feel the cause and effect power. If it continues to spread like this, it will alarm the nearby living beings. At that time, it might attract the dragons. Wang Changyuan's expression changed slightly as he transmitted. Hearing this, Pei Tianhong's eyes sank slightly. As expected, in the evening, the nearby beasts as well as the humans training and hunting in the mountains felt the cause and effect power. At this time, the cause and effect power was like a spider web, covering millions of miles, and still spreading further. Wind City was nearby. Once it spread to Wind City, it would definitely cause a commotion. Why don't we set up a time array under him? That way it will be faster? Madman was also quite worried. No. The appearance of a time array will cause time to change. This will affect young master's enlightenment. In short, when a person enters a state of enlightenment, nothing can interfere. Otherwise, there might be a deviation. Pei Tianhong shook his head. Then why won't there be a deviation in the Black Tortoise world? Madman was suspicious. The Black Tortoise world also had a time array. Because the Black Tortoise world's time array is fused with the entire Black Tortoise world. The fusion here doesn't only refer to the fusion with the world. There are also laws, origins, etc. There's a fundamental difference between this and a standalone time formation. Pei Tianhong said. Madman thought for a moment and asked, then why don't I send a message to the Fire Lotus and have the Fire Lotus bring him to the Black Tortoise world? This method can work. Pei Tianhong was taken aback and nodded. Madman immediately took out a voice transmission stone. After receiving the message, Fire Lotus immediately appeared outside. When she saw Qin Feiyang standing motionlessly in the air, her eyes flashed with envy. Following closely, with a gentle wave of her hand, a group of people immediately appeared in the Devil's Land. Qin Feiyang was still standing motionless above the Devil's Land. He didn't notice that he had already changed places. Furthermore, as Qin Feiyang appeared in the Devil's Land, endless karma power surged out in all directions. Very soon, the central province, which was the closest to the Devil's Land, was shrouded in this karma force. The 9 great commanders, 6,000 shadow guards, Pei Dason and the others, as well as the ferocious beasts living in the central prefecture, all looked at the Devil's Land in surprise. Now I can finally be at ease. Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan smiled at each other. As long as he was in the Black Tortoise world, no matter how big of a commotion Qin Feiyang made, it would not alarm anyone outside. But if he continues like this, how can we carry out our plan? Don't forget, we still have to rush to the Western continent as soon as possible and cooperate with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance to put on a show for the dragons. Madman frowned. Yes, I forgot about this matter. Pei Tianhong patted his head and fell into deep thought. Epiphany was a bit hard to say. It might only take a while, a few days or even several years. From the time Qin Feiyang entered the Epiphany until now, almost a day had passed. The Dragons group had entered the Eastern continent. With the ability of these people, they should have already inquired about their situation in the Eastern continent. Perhaps they were already on their way to the Western continent. Therefore, this matter couldn't be delayed. This? Pei Tianhong suddenly raised his head and looked at Wang Changyuan. Madman, White-Eyed Wolf, and Fire Lotus at the side. Say it quickly, Madman urged. After all, the Hall of Famers was his master. He was anxious in his heart. Find someone to pretend to be the young master. Pei Tianhong said. Pretend to be him? Madman was slightly stunned and said in realization. You mean to find someone to pretend to be him, and then we will head to the Western continent together? That's right. Pei Tianhong nodded. Okay. Madman didn't delay. He looked at Fire Lotus and said, You are fast. Go to the central continent and call a secret guard over. Cultivation isn't important, as long as they are smart enough. Because one's cultivation could be suppressed. Fire Lotus responded and took a step forward, disappearing without a trace. When will this daddy find that brat and ask for the authority? Seeing how Huolian was able to enter and exit the Black Tortoise world at will, and even control the laws of the Black Tortoise world, Madman felt very envious. Even Big Brother doesn't have this authority. You, White-Eyed Wolf said in disdain. Yeah, don't you feel bad? You don't even have Fire Lotus, but you don't. At the very least, you and old Qin are brothers who have gone through life and death together. Madman laughs sinisterly. Yeah, this makes Big Brother unconvinced. No, let's find a time in the future to find that brat and ask for an explanation. Why? White-Eyed Wolf said fiercely. Okay. Madman chuckled. To be honest, he had always been afraid of that little brat. Because even Qin Feiyang couldn't do anything to that brat. He wanted to instigate White-Eyed Wolf. When it was time. With White-Eyed Wolf leading the way, even if he angered that brat, it would be White-Eyed Wolf who would suffer. Schwa. In less than 5 breaths, Fire Lotus brought a person back to the Devil's Land. This person was the second commander. When he knew that there was a mission, the second commander was the first to step forward. Because this was a chance to show off. Madman explained the details to the second commander in a concise manner. Don't worry. I will cooperate. The second commander nodded, and then took out an illusory form pill, and changed into Qin Feiyang's appearance. He also suppressed his cultivation to the sovereign realm. Madman also looked at Fire Lotus and said, Send a message to your master. I have something to ask him. After speaking, he lowered his head and pondered. What is it? Fire Lotus was suspicious. Don't waste time. I will ask him directly. Madman urged. Fire Lotus smiled helplessly and took out a voice transmission divine stone. Qin Feiyang wasn't around, so Madman had to step forward and take charge of the situation. After all, he knew what Qin Feiyang was thinking and knew what to do. In terms of tactics, Madman wasn't much worse than Qin Feiyang. It was just that Qin Feiyang usually dealt with it, so he didn't like to worry. Buzz. Very soon, Elder Hua's figure appeared. Master. Fire Lotus bowed. Why are you sending me a message at this time? Do you know how chaotic the situation in the Eastern continent is now? This isn't the time to play around. If there isn't anything important, don't send me a message. Elder Hua said in a deep voice. Madman is looking for you. Fire Lotus said. Little Madman? Elder Hua was stunned and asked in confusion. Then why didn't he send me a message directly? Why would he bother you? He's right beside me. Fire Lotus smiled. Madman took a deep breath and walked to Fire Lotus's side. He looked at Elder Hua and said, So, the dragons are really asking around in the Eastern continent about us? That's right. Just this morning, they entered the Eastern continent and went to all the major cities to ask around. However, they didn't announce their identity as dragons to the public. Elder Hua said. That is to say, although the people in the Eastern continent know about them, they don't know about their identity as dragons and mystical dragons? Madman asked. Yes. Elder Hua nodded. After asking around for a day, they should know our situation like the back of their hands. Madman sneered. More or less. Because I've been secretly watching them. Elder Hua said. So, they haven't gone to the Demon Palace? Madman asked. Not yet. But it's only a matter of time. Don't worry, we'll be careful. Elder Hua smiled and wasn't too worried. All right. I'm sending you a message now because I want to tell you something. When the dragons arrive at your Demon Palace, tell them to go to the Western continent. At that time, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and I will put on a good show for them. There was a cold smile in Madman's eyes. All right. Elder Hua nodded. At this moment, Chu Yin appeared beside Elder Hua and glanced at Madman and Fire Lotus. She then looked at Elder Hua and said in a deep voice, A woman has come to our demon palace and injured many of our disciples. Speak of the devil. Elder Hua's eyes flashed. What woman? Madman was suspicious. It's that woman in a black dress. Chu Yin said. So it's her. Madman nodded and asked. Didn't we tell you not to offend them? Why were their disciples injured by her? This is also an act for them to see. If we act respectfully when they arrive, they will definitely think that we already know their identities. If that's the case, they will think that you were the one who tipped us off. After all, only you know their true identities. Elder Hua smiled. I see. Impressive. Madman chuckled. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Stop flattering me. I have to deal with them first. You guys be careful. Elder Hua exhorted, and turned off the voice transmission godstone. He looked at Chu Yin and said, "Let's go and meet her." At the same time, Fire Lotus also sent Madman and the others out of the Black Tortoise realm. Madman then opened a space-time passage and rushed to the western continent. "Who are you? Do you know where this is?" "You're courting death." In the sky above the Devil Palace, the woman in a black dress walked step by step in the air. Her long hair fluttered in the wind, and her dress rustled. She was like an ice fairy that had descended to the mortal world, emitting a cold aura. But the black-clothed old man wasn't by her side at this moment. There were many Devil Palace disciples surrounding the black-clothed woman. Every one of them was furious. She actually dared to barge into the Devil Palace alone. Did she eat a leopard's guts? However, no matter how the Devil Palace disciples berated her, the black-clothed woman didn't say a word. Her eyes were also filled with contempt. "Don't be presumptuous in the Devil Palace." Suddenly, along with a loud shout, Chu Yin and Elder Ho both descended in the sky. Their expressions were extremely ugly. Although they knew the black-clothed woman's identity, they still had to continue the act. Chapter 34-32. Elder Hua, Vice Hall Master, she's gone too far. Not only did she injure countless of our fellow disciples, but she also spoke rudely. She even asked all of you and the Hall Master to kneel and welcome her. A group of disciples immediately surrounded Elder Hua and Chu Yin and roared with righteous indignation. A murderous aura surged from Elder Hua's body when he heard this. He raised his hand and waved it. The surrounding disciples immediately quieted down. In the distance, many disciplinary elders and deacon elders were also making their way toward Qin Nan with murderous looks. "What do you want?" Chu Yin took a step forward and stood in front of the woman in a black dress. A cold light flickered in her eyes. "You're Chu Yin, the Vice Hall Master of the Devil Hall." The woman in a black dress sized Chu Yin up and said indifferently. Chu Yin laughed out of anger and shouted, "Since you know that this is the Devil Hall, and that I'm the Vice Hall Master of the Devil Hall, how dare you be so presumptuous?" "The Devil Hall," the woman in a black dress muttered. She looked at Elder Hua and said coldly, "You're Chu Yin's teacher, the former Vice Hall Master, the current Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, Elder Hua, who's known as a person of virtue and prestige, right?" "That's me." Elder Hua nodded and sized up the woman in a black dress. He said, "May I know who you are and why have you barged into my Devil Hall? Why are you still being so polite with her? Barging into my Devil Hall? If news of this spreads, how can my Devil Hall establish itself in the Eastern Continent in the future?" Chu Yin roared, and the law of space appeared. The surrounding space collapsed crazily and turned into pieces of sparkling fragments. They were like blades that emitted a bone-piercing sharpness. The law of space's supreme profundity used the void as a means of attack. Wherever there was a void, there was a king that ruled over everything. At this moment, Chu Yin was like a queen. "Are you really going to attack? Don't regret it." The woman in a black dress spoke. "How dare you threaten me?" A cold light surged in Chu Yin's eyes. Countless sparkling fragments of the void instantly turned into a long river of time and space. It flooded the surroundings and attacked the woman in a black dress. "Retreat!" The enforcement elders and deacon elders rushed over and saw the situation and immediately shouted. Immediately, the surrounding disciples then turned around and fled into the sky, as if fleeing for their lives. After all, a battle between experts of this level could easily destroy the heavens and earth. If they stayed here, they would definitely be implicated. Paramount profundity of the laws of space-time, heart as it pleases. The woman in the black dress looked at Chu Yin with a trace of surprise in her eyes. He looked so young, but he actually grasped the highest profoundness of the space-time laws. It looked like he lived up to his reputation as a Demon Royal Hall's Vice Hall Master. However, now was not the time to compete in individual strength. The Dragon Clan had never cared about the competition of individual strength. Clang! With a loud bang, the black copper mirror appeared. Black light fell, forming a barrier that protected the woman in the black dress. The torrent of void fragments slammed into the barrier. With a loud bang, heaven and earth trembled, and the void shattered. However, the barrier was not damaged at all. What? The group of disciples and elders were all dumbfounded by what they saw. Elder Hua's pupil shrank. Chu Yin couldn't help but frown as she looked at the copper mirror, floating above the woman in a black dress. A dominator's divine weapon. I'm a greater mastery sovereign. But I have a dominator's divine weapon. I believe I don't need to say anything. You should be able to guess that my background and identity are not simple. The woman in the black dress said indifferently. Her eyes were still filled with disdain. This was a kind of innate arrogance, an attitude of disdain towards all things. The dragons were above all forces. As one of the princesses of the dragons, she had the right to be arrogant. Who are you? Chu Yin raised her eyebrows. Actually, she already knew, but she had to act until the end. She didn't want the other party to see any flaws and cause trouble. They were different from Qin Feiyang. Just as Qin Feiyang said, the barefooted were not afraid of wearing shoes. So what if the dragons were strong? If they could win, they would fight. If they couldn't win, they would run. However, as the leader of the Demon Royal Hall, they didn't have the right to be willful. They could not abandon the Devil Hall, the millions of disciples, and even more so, the family business that their predecessors had worked so hard to establish for countless years. They had to make sure nothing went wrong. The woman in the black dress said coldly, "My identity isn't something you can touch. All you need to do is cooperate with me." "How dare you?" The Demon Royal Hall's hall master shouted coldly as he descended. His eyes were as cold as ice. Demon Royal Hall's hall master. The woman in the black dress muttered, "Don't think that you can act so presumptuously in my Demon Royal Hall, just because you have a dominator's divine weapon." The Demon Royal Hall's hall master waved his hand, and a red sword appeared. The sharp light instantly surged toward the woman in the black dress. The barrier protecting the woman in the black dress immediately began to distort and tremble. In just an instant, cracks began to appear on it. The Demon Royal Hall is indeed the overlord of the Eastern continent. The woman in the black dress eyes flickered. Actually, she was also testing Elder Hua and the other's attitude. Before coming to the Demon Royal Hall, she had already found out that Qin Feiyang and the others had a close relationship with the Demon Royal Hall. Therefore, she thought that Qin Feiyang and the others would definitely tell the three Demon Royal Hall's leaders about the dragons. But now, from the attitude of Elder Hua and the others, it was obvious that they didn't know that she was from the dragons. Otherwise, why would they dare to attack her again and again? It seemed that the relationship between the Demon Royal Hall and Qin Feiyang and the others wasn't as good as what others said. Haha. I really didn't expect that there would be someone in the Sky Cloud realm who dares to attack my second sister. Suddenly, a cold laugh sounded. The woman in the black dress raised her eyebrows when she heard this. The Demon Royal Hall's hall master and the others were also shocked. When they looked up, they saw a young man in white leading a middle-aged couple over. Attacking my second sister is absolutely unforgivable. Another sinister laugh sounded. A young man in red walked over with two old men in red. Blood mist lingered around him, making him look like a god of death. Haha. The Demon Royal Hall, the overlord of the Eastern continent. They gave themselves that title, right? Did they ask for our permission? Along with a few more cold laughs, the other princes and princesses also arrived. Why are there so many of them? Chu Yin raised her eyebrows. As expected, Elder Hua smiled inwardly. Once the dragons found out about the relationship between the Demon Royal Hall and Qin Feiyang, they would definitely come to the Demon Royal Hall. However, this number seemed to be a little unexpected. The fire dragon glanced at them one by one and transmitted his voice to Chu Yin and the Demon Royal Hall's hall master. Be careful. Qin Feiyang said that these people might have a sovereign divine weapon each. What? Chu Yin and the Demon Royal Hall's hall master were shocked. Each of them had a sovereign divine weapon? How could this be? The woman in the black dress looked at the young man in white and the others and said, "You guys came really quickly. How can we compare to my second sister? No matter when, my second sister is always one step ahead. So this proves that my second sister's ability is indeed above ours." The young man in red laughed. I don't dare to say that. The woman in the black dress said coldly. Then, she looked at Elder Hua and the others and said, Do you still want to attack? Do they dare to attack? The young man in white had a trace of disdain on his face. He immediately attacked with his white dragon sword, and a terrifying light instantly enveloped the entire Demon Royal Hall. 2 sovereign divine weapons. The surrounding disciples and elders were all stunned. Swoosh! A white-robed elder landed beside the Demon Royal Hall's hall master and the others. He looked at the woman in the black dress, and the others and frowned. Who are they? This person was the first elder of the Demon Royal Hall. He was the 4th person in the Demon Royal Hall who had grasped the strongest law, other than Elder Hua and the others. However, he usually focused on cultivating, and did not have much interaction with Qin Feiyang and the others. Therefore, he did not know many things. I don't know him. The Demon Royal Hall's hall master and the others shook their heads. There was no point in explaining now. Moreover, now was not the time to explain. Moreover, after the 8th elder had been bribed by the Deputy Alliance Master, Elder Hua, and the others did not trust the others in the Demon Royal Hall as much as before, including the 1st elder. After all, there was a saying that once bitten twice shy. There was already a shadow in his heart. When the 1st elder heard this, he looked at the woman in the black dress, and the others again, and said in a deep voice, Why have you all come to my Demon Royal Hall? Why did 2 sovereign divine weapons appear all of a sudden? First, Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist appeared out of nowhere. Now these people appeared out of nowhere. Moreover, they were all young people like Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist. Could it be that these people came from the same place as Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist? Were they here to cause trouble? I won't waste time with you. I heard that your Demon Royal Hall has a good relationship with Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo. Moreover, they are disciples of your Demon Royal Hall. Is this true? The woman in the black dress asked. Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo. Why are they mentioned? The surrounding disciples and elders were puzzled. When the 1st elder heard this, his heart skipped a beat. They were indeed here for Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist. Just as he was about to speak, Elder Hua took a step forward and said in a low voice, I'll deal with them. Okay. The 1st elder was stunned for a moment. He then replied inwardly and fell silent. Elder Hua looked at the woman in the black dress and nodded. There is indeed such a thing. This was something that everyone knew, so there was no need to hide it. Very good. The woman in the black dress nodded and asked, Are they in the Demon Royal Hall now? No. Elder Hua shook his head. No. The woman in the black dress frowned. Really? Ever since they entered the Een Demon Land, they haven't returned. We can't contact them either. Elder Hua said. But they have clearly returned to the Eastern Continent. The woman in the black dress said word by word. Her eyes flickered with a cold light. What? They're back. We don't have any news at all. Elder Hua was shocked. The woman in the black dress sized up Elder Hua. Her eyes flickered. Elder Hua's expression was calm, and did not reveal any flaws. Chu Yun and the Demon Royal Hall Master were naturally the same. After all, they were already mentally prepared. As for the other disciples, the management, the elders, and the 1st elder, they were all confused. They were definitely not pretending. This was because they really did not know that Qin Feiyang and the others had already returned to the Eastern Continent. Chapter 34-33. Are they really not in the Demon Palace? The black-dressed lady spoke again, her tone as sharp as a blade. If you don't believe me, you can interrogate them one by one. Elder Hua said indifferently. Interrogate? What a waste of time. Just destroy the Demon Palace. The white-clothed youth's eyes flashed coldly. Destroy the Demon Palace. Elder Hua clenched his fists as he stared at the white-clothed youth and said, You can try. Although you have 2 sovereign divine weapons, my Devil Palace is not a pushover. Even if you can destroy my Devil Palace, you will pay a heavy price. Haha. When the white-clothed youth heard this, he couldn't help but laugh as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. A mere demon palace actually dared to boast shamelessly and say that they would pay a heavy price? How could there be such a childish old man in this world? Looking at the white-clothed youth's arrogant attitude, the black-dressed lady couldn't help but frown. She looked at Elder Hua and said indifferently, I won't go so far as to destroy the demon palace. I just want to know the whereabouts of Qin Feiyang and the others. As long as you tell me, I will give the black dragon copper mirror to the demon palace as a greeting gift. What? You want to give the sovereign divine weapon to the demon palace? You are too generous. What is the relationship between these people and Qin Feiyang? They are willing to sacrifice a sovereign divine weapon as a price. Could it be that they want to avenge their clan's annihilation? The disciples and elders of the demon palace were shocked. Even Elder Hua and the other two were caught off guard. However, they were a little more rational. No matter how powerful the dragons were, they wouldn't casually give a sovereign divine weapon to others as a greeting gift. This was definitely a bluff. If they really fell for it, they would definitely turn hostile. The black-dressed lady continued. Although the demon palace is the overlord of the eastern continent, and also has a sovereign divine weapon, I believe that I don't need to tell you what the Sky Cloud realm will be like if the demon palace has another sovereign divine weapon. Thank you for your kindness. We do want this sovereign divine weapon of yours. But we have no choice. We really don't know the whereabouts of Qin Feiyang and the others. Elder Hua shook his head and looked at the black dragon copper mirror with a regretful expression. Since Elder Hua and the other two had already said so much, the woman in black dress could basically confirm that Qin Feiyang and the others had not contacted the Devil Hall after they returned to the eastern continent. Elder Hua changed the topic and revealed a greedy look. He said in a hoarse voice, If you can give this bronze mirror to our demon hall, I can tell you something useful. He pretended to be a greedy man again. What news? The woman in the black dress asked. This. Elder Hua looked at the black dragon mirror, his eyes filled with desire. Old bastard, you really don't know what's good for you. The white-clothed youth's eyes were filled with killing intent as he shouted. White Longjian, kill him for me. Clang. Hearing that, Bai Longjian immediately released streaks of sword qi. They shattered the sky and charged toward Elder Hua. Humph. The hall master snorted coldly. The scarlet sword in his hand trembled and waves of sword qi surged out, forming a sword qi barrier that enveloped the entire hall behind him. Bai Longjian's sword qi instantly arrived. The faint sword qi barrier that protected the Devil Hall, Elder Hua, and the rest immediately distorted. Stop. The woman in the black dress looked at the white-clothed youth. Second sister, you're too long-winded. The white-clothed youth was expressionless. The woman in the black dress said coldly, Don't forget the instructions given to us before we came out. We can't hurt innocent living beings. The white-clothed youth said angrily, Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo are disciples of the Devil Hall. They're their accomplices. How can they be innocent? The woman in the black dress frowned and said, Let me ask them first. All right. I'll listen to you. You're the second sister after all. The white-clothed youth sneered. The woman in the black dress was not angry when she heard that, because she was already used to it. She looked at Elder Hua again and said, We don't want to fight, so please don't make it difficult for us. As long as you cooperate, trust me, you'll definitely get unexpected benefits. This. Elder Hua looked hesitant, but he was mocking her in his heart. She had the nerve to say that she would give the black dragon mirror to the Devil Hall as a greeting gift. Was she lying to a child? Look, he was able to find out in one go. There's a limit to my patience. The woman in the black dress said, All right, I'll tell you. You can go to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance in the Western Continent to take a look. Qin Feiyang and the Madman's Masters are respectively the Deputy Alliance Leader and the Hall of the Exalted Hall Master of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. If they really came out of the Shadow Devil land, they would definitely look for these two people. Elder Hua said, Western Continent. The woman in the black dress muttered and looked at Elder Hua. Aren't they disciples of the Devil Hall? Moreover, you've worked together before. Is it appropriate to betray them like this? A straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. I know that you must have a powerful background. My devil hall can't afford to offend you. As for Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo, you're a smart person. You should know that people like us won't sincerely cooperate with others. In our eyes, there are only benefits. The reason we cooperated with them back then was to deal with the blood hall. Now that the blood hall has been destroyed, why should my devil hall get involved in this mess? Elder Hu sneered. The woman in the black dress couldn't help but have a trace of disdain in her eyes when she heard this. I know you look down on our actions, but this is the way of the world now. There's no such thing as eternal friends, only eternal benefits. We can't go against you and put the devil hall in danger for them. Of course, Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo are well aware of this. They also know that even if they come to us, we won't help them. That's why they didn't contact us when they returned to the Eastern continent. At this moment, Elder Hu was displaying his hypocritical side to the fullest. How realistic. The woman in the black dress shook her head. Elder Hu smiled but didn't say anything. The woman in the black dress glanced at Elder Hu before looking at the Devil Hall's hall master and Chu Yin. Seeing that the two of them had a cold expression, the disdain in her heart grew even stronger. Sinister, selfish, they're even worse than the dragons. What a joke. The woman in the black dress turned and looked at the white-clad young man and the others. She asked, "What do you guys think?" The white-clad young man glanced at Elder Hu and the others and said mockingly, "Their faces are already on display. What else can we think?" The red-clad young man said with a mocking smile, "I used to think that our people were heartless and cold. However, looking at it now, I feel that we're quite united and righteous. At least in the face of the big picture, we'll still stand together." Elder Hu, the Devil Hall's hall master, and Chu Yun's expressions turned ugly when they heard this. "What's wrong? You're not convinced." The red-clad young man glanced at Elder Hu and the others. He was arrogant and overbearing. With two sovereign divine weapons in front of us, how can we not be convinced? Elder Hu sneered. "At least you know what's good for you. If you really piss us off, even if the Devil Hall, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, the Divine Hall, and the Heavenly Hall were added together, they wouldn't be enough to kill us, let alone the Devil Hall." The red-clad young man chuckled. "Don't waste your breath on these ants. Hurry up and go to the Western mainland," the white-clad young man said with disdain. He then looked at Elder Hu and said, "Give us the coordinates of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. If you're so capable, go and find the coordinates yourselves." Elder Hu snorted coldly. "You're still interested?" The white-clad young man was stunned. The Devil Hall's hall master patted Elder Hu's shoulder and sighed. "Tell them to leave as soon as possible, so that they don't implicate the disciples below." Elder Hu glanced at the Devil Hall's hall master before looking at the black-clad young woman and giving her the coordinates. "Wait, where's little sister? Why don't I see her?" Suddenly, a green-clothed woman scanned the surroundings and asked, The black-clad young woman, the white-clad young man, and the red-clad young man also looked around. As expected, the silver-haired young woman was nowhere to be seen. Could she have gone to the Western mainland? The red-clad young man frowned. The black-clad young woman and the others' hearts sank when they heard this. Immediately, they either activated the law of space-time or activated their space-time teleportation divine weapons. If it was someone else, it would not be possible. However, they knew their little sister very well. She might not be as strong as them in terms of strength, but she was definitely smarter than all the princes and princesses. Wait! Suddenly, the red-clad young man waved his hand and stopped in his tracks. He lowered his head and his eyes flickered. The others stopped as well and looked at him suspiciously. Elder Hu and the other two heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that the group was about to leave. However, when they saw the red-clad young man's reaction, their hearts were in their throats. Could it be that he saw through our disguise? But that was impossible. Putting everything else aside, they were still very confident in their acting skills. The red-clad young man suddenly turned around and looked at the fire dragon and the other two. His eyes flickered and he asked, "You guys should have established a contract with Qin Feiyang and the others, right?" "I haven't." The Devil Hall's hall master shook his head. "Neither have I." Chuyin shook her head. They were all wondering if they had to send a message to Qin Feiyang and the others. What about you? The red-clad young man looked at Elder Hua. Yes. It was impossible for Elder Hua to say no. After all, their relationship was there. Even if they were just using each other, they would definitely establish a contract to facilitate communication. Moreover, he had said in front of the black-dressed lady that he had tried to contact Qin Feiyang and the others after they entered the Yin Demon land. Okay, you can send a message to them now, the red-clad young man said. Okay. Elder Hua nodded. He definitely could not refuse. Otherwise, it would be too obvious and would definitely arouse their suspicion. As for sending a message, it did not matter. Although he did not expect this in advance, with Qin Feiyang and Madman's brains, as long as he secretly gave him a look, the two would definitely understand. At that time, he would just continue to act. However, at this moment, Qin Feiyang was still in the state of enlightenment, so it was naturally impossible for him to reply. Seeing that Qin Feiyang did not reply, Elder Hua sent a message to Madman as if nothing had happened. Chapter 34-34. The Western Continent. The original Nine-Dragon Mountain Range. Although only a few months had passed, the Nine-Dragon Mountain Range that had turned into ruins had become brand new. The vegetation was lush and full of vitality. This was all thanks to the crystal vein and spirit vein. The energy of the crystal vein and spirit vein not only brought benefits to living beings, but also promoted the growth of plants. In short, without the nourishment of the crystal vein and spirit vein, this place would still be a desolate land. The crystal vein and spirit vein here naturally belonged to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. The alliance capital of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance was now in the Nine-Dragon Mountain Range. When they first moved to the Western Continent, they also brought the crystal vein and spirit vein with them. Therefore, the cultivation environment was not worse than the Eastern Continent. Similarly, when the Rogue Cultivator Alliance came to the Western Continent, they set up a barrier just like the Kanglan Snow Mountain. This barrier was set up by the Alliance Master. It completely sealed off the Nine-Dragon Mountain Range and cut off the teleportation of the Law of Spacetime and the Spacetime Teleportation Artifact. In other words, the current Alliance capital was the same as before. It was difficult for outsiders to enter the Alliance capital, unless they used a sovereign divine weapon to forcefully break the barrier. At this moment, outside the barrier, there was a spatial artifact hidden in the void. 3 figures stood inside. It was the silver-haired woman and the 2 white-haired old women. As expected, they had arrived at the Western Continent ahead of time, and they had found the Nine-Dragon Mountain Range so quickly. They had to admit that they were quite capable. However, at this moment, they were also helpless because they were blocked outside the barrier and could not enter the Alliance capital. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance's security is quite tight. One of the white-haired old women raised her eyebrows. No rush. My brothers and sisters will definitely find this place sooner or later. Let's not expose ourselves first and see if Qin Feiyang and the others will come to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. The silver-haired woman waved her hand. Maybe they have already entered, the other old woman said. There's nothing we can do. Qin Feiyang has a sovereign divine weapon. Even if we break in, we can't do anything to them. So we still have to wait. The silver-haired woman smiled faintly. Judging from her attitude, she did not seem to be in a hurry to find Qin Feiyang and the others. Inside the barrier, a huge city sat in the center of the Nine-Dragon Mountain Range. This was the Alliance capital. The entire city was exactly the same as it was in the Eastern Continent. When they had first come to the Western mainland, the Alliance Master had directly moved the entire city here. In short, other than the difference in status and location, everything else was the same as before. In the Vice Alliance leader's courtyard, there were a few figures sitting around the tea table. They were the Frenzied One, the White-Eyed Wolf, Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan, the Second Commander, the Alliance Master, the Vice Alliance Master, and the Hall of Famers. The Alliance Master was holding a teacup, drinking tea while smiling. The people of the dragons thought that their plan was flawless, but they didn't know that everything was under our control. The others were also full of smiles. But Madman was frowning. Little lunatic, what's wrong? You seem to have something on your mind. The Hall of Famers noticed Lunatic's expression and asked with concern, Old man, tell me, isn't it a bit abrupt for you to suddenly fall out with us at this time? Wouldn't it seem a little deliberate? I feel that it's hard for the people of the dragons to believe. After all, they aren't fools. Madman raised his head and looked at the Hall of Famers, frowning. Isn't it because there's too little time, and we can't think of a better way for the time being? Let's leave it at that for now. If they really doubt it, we can continue to act for them. The Hall of Famers laughed hoarsely. Madman pondered for a moment, shook his head and sighed. We don't care, but I'm mainly worried about you. What if they still want to kill you after we fall out with them? The Hall of Famers thought for a moment and smiled. Life and death are fated. Wealth and honor are up to the heavens. There's no need to think so much. You make it sound so easy. If the Rogue Cultivator Alliance is really in danger because of us, or if you lose your lives, how will I explain it to old Chin? Besides, it's not easy for me to take charge of the overall situation. How can I mess it up? No, this plan has to be upgraded. Madman shook his head. Don't force yourself. Seeing Madman lowering his head and frowning, the Hall of Famers advised in a low voice. Madman turned a deaf ear. Suddenly, he looked at the Alliance leader and the other two and chuckled. I've thought of a foolproof method. You guys can't reject it, you have to do as I say. Tell us about it. The Vice Alliance leader and the other two exchanged glances and looked at Madman. Madman leaned in front of the three and muttered in a low voice. How can this work? What's the difference between this and your original plan? It's too risky. If the dragons really have a sovereign divine weapon each, then even if the heavens come down, they won't be able to save you guys. No matter what, I object. After the Hall of Famers heard this, he shook his head and rejected it. Wasn't this courting death? I've already said that there's no need to consider for us. We'll act according to the circumstances, as long as you guys can escape safely. Also, it's useless even if you object. Madman snorted coldly. But the Hall of Famers frowned. The Vice Alliance leader took a deep look at Madman, before turning to the Hall of Famers and sighing. Old Chi, just listen to him. You, the Hall of Famers glared at the Vice Alliance leader. Don't you know the character of your disciple? Can we change his mind? Besides, we have to have confidence in them and believe that they will be able to escape safely. The Vice Alliance leader said. The Hall of Famers frowned and looked at the Alliance leader. Let's do as they say. After all, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance doesn't only have the three of us. There are thousands of disciples under us. We can ignore our own lives, but we can't ignore their lives. The Alliance leader sighed. Hearing this, the Hall of Famers finally gritted his teeth and nodded. All right, then, it seems that we have to be prepared to fight to the death. Pei Tianhong chuckled. Wang Changyuan nodded, not having any fear. Buzz. Right at this moment, Madman's voice transmission godstone rang. Madman was slightly stunned. He took out the voice transmission godstone and lowered his head to check it. He looked at the Vice Alliance leader and Pei Tianhong and said, It's Elder Hua. Elder Hua is sending us a message at this time. Pei Tianhong whispered. Could it be that the dragons are already on their way to the western continent? It could also be that the dragons are asking him to send us a message. Wang Changyuan said. Madman took a deep breath, got up and walked to the side, avoiding the Vice Alliance leader and the others, and activated the voice transmission godstone. Demon Hall. When they saw Madman's shadow appear, the Demon Hall master and Chu Yun's hearts tensed up. Don't let it slip. At the same time, the dragons and the others also locked their gazes on Madman's shadow, especially the white-clothed young man and the black-dressed woman. Their eyes emitted shocking killing intent. Looking at Madman again. Although he couldn't see the black-dressed woman and the others because they were opposite Elder Hua, and their vision was affected, he could see the elders and disciples behind Elder Hua. At this moment, his heart trembled. Something was strange. Because if there was really something, Elder Hu would definitely not send him a message in front of so many people. Moreover, looking at the expressions of those elders and disciples, it was as if they were facing a great enemy. All of this could only mean one thing. The people from the Dragon Clan were standing in front of Elder Hu, silently looking at him. So, the Demon Hall Master and Chuyan still didn't trust Madman's ability. One had to know that Madman's brain wasn't inferior to others. It was just that Qin Feiyang was usually in control of the situation, so he was too lazy to use his brain. Elder Hu glanced at the black-dressed woman and the others without leaving a trace and chuckled. Little Madman, you guys really came back from the Een Devil land. When Madman heard this, he immediately knew what Elder Hu was hinting at, and laughed. We didn't make any noise when we came back. How did you know? Could it be that you're monitoring us? That's too much. We're partners after all. How could we monitor you? Besides, we don't have the ability to monitor you, Elder Hu said with a fake smile. Partners? Madman's face was filled with disdain as he sneered mercilessly. Don't make it sound so nice. You and I both know very well that what partners? We're just using each other. Besides, that's all in the past. You're getting more and more out of hand. Can't you feel this old man's attitude towards you guys? Besides, you guys are still my Demon Hall's disciples, so this old man has to take care of you guys. When are you guys returning to the Demon Hall? Elder Hu asked. I don't know. Madman shook his head. Then where are you guys now? Elder Hu asked. What does it have to do with you? Madman frowned. Nonsense, you guys are my Demon Hall's disciples, so of course it has something to do with us. Elder Hu said angrily. Madman pondered for a moment and shook his head. I can't tell you our current whereabouts. Why? Elder Hu was suspicious. Since you're so concerned about us, I'll reveal a little to you. We've been targeted by a force called the Dragons. This force is very powerful, so we have to hide and not let anyone know our whereabouts. Madman sighed. Dragons? Elder Hu pretended to be surprised and asked. What dragons? Why haven't I heard of them before? They've already entered the eastern continent, so you'll know sooner or later. Is there anything else? After Madman finished speaking, he wanted to turn off the voice transmission stone. Wait, is there a need to hide it from me? You can't be thinking that I'll tell the dragons your whereabouts, right? Elder Hu looked unhappy. Don't make yourself sound so noble. Others might not know, but this old man knows very well that you're a hypocrite, so don't pretend to be benevolent in front of this old man. Goodbye. After Madman finished speaking, he turned off the voice transmission stone. Stinking brat. How dare you scold this old man in front of everyone? After we've dealt with the dragons, I'll settle the score with you. Elder Hu secretly muttered, and looked at the woman in black and the others. He said regretfully. As you can see, this old man tried everything to trick him, but he didn't fall for it at all. However, you can really go to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance to take a look. The woman in black and the others looked at each other and didn't stay any longer. They all turned around and stepped into the space-time tunnel. Seeing this, Elder Hu finally heaved a sigh of relief. Teacher, your acting skills are quite good. Chuyan secretly gave Elder Hu a thumbs up. Of course. Otherwise, how could I teach such an outstanding student like you? Elder Hu secretly smiled proudly. You really don't know how to be humble at all. Chuyan secretly despised him. Then she raised her head and looked at the dissipating space-time tunnel. She transmitted her voice. I hope they can survive this calamity. With their ability, they definitely can. Elder Hu's eyes were full of confidence. Chapter 34-35. Western Continent Alliance Capital. Crazy put away the sound transmission god stone and looked at the white-eyed wolf, Pei Tianhong, and the other two. He laughed. Are you afraid? Yes. Big brother will leave first. The white-eyed wolf nodded and ran. Crazy's face darkened as he grabbed the white-eyed wolf and said angrily, Aren't we brothers? Who's your brother? The white-eyed wolf snorted. Hearing this, the veins on Crazy's forehead popped as he said angrily, I really want to slap you to death. Heh, don't transform if you have the ability. Let's spar and see who will slap who to death. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Crazy was speechless as he let go of the white-eyed wolf. Leave if you want to, I won't stop you. The ingrate laughed mischievously and leaped out like a wisp of smoke, disappearing without a trace. So disloyal. Crazy snorted as he looked at Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan, and the second commander asking, "What about you guys? Do you want to be a coward with the white-eyed wolf?" Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan smiled bitterly at each other. The second commander still had a choice. After all, the second commander had never appeared in the Een Demon land. The dragons didn't know of the second commander's existence. But the two of them had already reached this step. Did they still have a choice? Even if the dragons didn't find them here, they would still chase them all over the continent. Especially the youth in white. Back then, they had assisted Qin Feiyang and Madman to steal the supreme inheritance of the law of destruction right under this young man's nose. With such a deep enmity and humiliation, would the white-clothed young man let them go? Heh, as expected of a good brother, we share fortune and misfortune. Crazy bared his teeth and looked at the second commander. Don't worry, after this mission, I'll let old Qin help you open the door to all your potential. Thank you. The second commander forced a smile. If it was any other time, he would be overjoyed to hear this. But now he couldn't be happy, because whether or not he could keep his life was another matter. Then let's get ready. Madman's eyes flashed. Outside, in a corner. Do you really think I'm afraid of death? I'm doing this just in case. I'm trying my best to survive. The white-eyed wolf mumbled to himself as he took out the divine sound transmission stone. Wang. A short while later, the shadow of the Fire Lotus appeared. Brother Wolf, did it go well? Fire Lotus asked with a smile. Smooth my ass. Little lunatic, you're really a lunatic. You actually want to carry out the second plan that we originally set. The white-eyed wolf pouted. Plan B. Fire Lotus was shocked and hurriedly said, should I send him a message and persuade him? It's too late. The dragons are about to be killed. Go and ask Guchong how he is feeling right now. If you're in a good mood, go to the Heavenly Cloud Sea and support us. White-eyed wolf felt helpless. He could control the Horsedale whisk, but there was nothing he could do about the castle. Sometimes it really depended on its mood. Fire Lotus was slightly taken aback and asked suspiciously, aren't you in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance? Why did you go to the Heavenly Cloud Sea? This is Little Lunatic's plan. He chose to fight in the Heavenly Cloud Sea because he might get the help of that little rabbit. White-eyed wolf said, I see. Fire Lotus suddenly understood. If they really wanted to carry out the second plan, Huanzhenda and the others would probably need the little rabbits' help if they wanted to escape. Otherwise, even if Gu Bao and Qin Feiyang both rushed over, it would be difficult for them to escape from the Dragon Clan's siege. Also, when little Qin Zi comes out of seclusion, ask him to come to rescue us immediately. White-eyed wolf said in a deep voice. Understood. I'll go find Gu Chong right away. Fire Lotus nodded and turned off the divine sound transmission stone. She glanced at the motionless Qin Feiyang and instantly landed in the sky above Gu Chong. White-eyed wolf put away the divine sound transmission stone, looked at the sky, and sighed helplessly before returning to the house. Aren't you going to run away? Lunatic looked at him teasingly. I can't bear to part with you. White-eyed wolf smiled embarrassedly. TSK. Lunatic raised his middle finger, but there was a trace of a smile on his face. White-eyed wolf was a classic example of a tough mouth, but a soft heart. He then looked at the Hall of Famers and said, Old man, you must not be impulsive. Act according to the plan. I know. Do I need you to teach me? Hall of Famers glared at Lunatic. Lunatic smiled embarrassedly and looked at the Alliance Master. Send us over. Okay. The Alliance Master waved his hand, and a space-time teleportation channel appeared. Although others couldn't open a space-time teleportation channel in the Alliance capital, he could. After all, he was the one who set up the barrier here. Let's go. Lunatic smiled and led White-eyed Wolf, Pei Tianhong, and the others into the space-time teleportation channel without looking back. Boom! Just as the space-time teleportation channel dissipated, a terrifying aura suddenly appeared in the sky above the Alliance capital. They're here! The Alliance Master and the others were shocked. What's going on? At the same time, the entire Alliance capital, including the disciples of the Hall of Famers, ran out and looked up. Because the commotion was too big, there were even the aura of 2 sovereign divine weapons. They thought that it was the Demon Hall, Heavenly Hall, or Temple of Gods. Because in the Sky Cloud realm, only these 3 forces had sovereign divine weapons. As for Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo, not to mention that they had disappeared for a long time, just based on their relationship with the Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers, they wouldn't do anything to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. But when they came out and saw the people in the sky, they were a little stunned. Who were these people? They had never seen them before. Whoosh! A red-clothed old man flew into the sky. He was the Deacon Elder of the Hall of Famers, and also the younger brother of the Hall of Famers. He was a perfect sovereign. He glanced at the group of people in the sky, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "What brings you to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance?" In the sky, the black-clothed woman and the others each took a side. The white dragon sword and the black dragon mirror emitted a monstrous aura. The Alliance Master's barrier appeared from the void, releasing the aura of the space-time law. This is a barrier condensed by the space-time law? The black-clothed woman was surprised. And looking at the strength of this barrier, the person who set it up has a very high understanding of the space-time law. He's probably only 1 step away from stepping into the ranks of the ultimate profound. I didn't expect the Rogue Cultivator Alliance to be hiding such a big shot. The middle-aged couple standing behind the white-clothed young man had a hint of surprise in their eyes. Ultimate profound? When the princes and princesses heard this, a hint of surprise appeared on their faces. If there's nothing else, please leave immediately. The red-clothed old man frowned and shouted when he saw the group of people ignoring him. Noisy. The white-clothed young man's eyes turned cold. With a loud clang, the white dragon sword tore the sky and slammed into the barrier, shattering it on the spot. Presumptuous. The red-clothed old man was furious. How dare they attack and shatter the barrier of their alliance capital? One had to know. A barrier like this was equivalent to the face of a force. Shattering the barrier was undoubtedly a slap in the face. Bastard! This is the alliance capital of our Rogue Cultivator Alliance. How dare they come here to cause trouble? At the same time, the people in the city below and the disciples of the Hall of the Exalted were also burning with anger. Sister Dandan, do you know them? The Hall of the Exalted's Tianfeng Peak stood 2 stunning women. They were the granddaughters of Zhao Shaojin and the Great Elder. I don't know them. The green-clothed woman shook her head. If only the 2 of them were left on Tianfeng Peak. Sometimes it was quite boring. Of course, there were also people who came to curry favor with them. After all, one was once the #1 genius girl in East City, and the other was the granddaughter of the Great Elder. Moreover, due to the relationship between Zhao Eryong and Qin Feiyang, Zhao Shaojin was doted on and taken care of by the big shots. Therefore, in the Hall of the Exalted, although their cultivation bases were not the highest, they were the most popular people. 2 sovereign divine weapons. Could they be related to Qin Dage and Brother Mo? Zhao Shaojin suddenly said. Huh? The woman in green was stunned, and immediately rolled her eyes. This also involved Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo? Her imagination was too wild. You have to give me an explanation. The old man in red came back to his senses and immediately shouted. He still did not know that these people in front of him were from the dragons. He also did not know how powerful the dragons were. Therefore, in his opinion, even if they had 2 sovereign divine weapons, they were courting death by causing trouble in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Because now the Rogue Cultivator Alliance was not only allied with the Devil Palace, but also had Qin Feiyang as their backer. Qin Feiyang had 2 sovereign divine weapons in his hands, and the Slaughter Domain, that could compete with the sovereign divine weapons. Therefore he was not afraid. Not only him, but everyone in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance thought so. Give you an explanation? Who do you think you are? The white-clothed youth's eyes flashed coldly. The white-clothed woman behind him took a step forward, and a bone-piercing cold current surged from her body. Instantly, the world seemed to have entered a cold winter as cold winds howled and snow covered the area. Peak Dominator Ice Law. The old man in red was shocked. Die, the white-clothed woman said as she raised her arm and pointed her index finger in the air. The frost in the sky instantly turned into a torrent that surged toward the old man in red. The old man in red's face was pale. He was only a peak dominator, and was one small realm lower than the white-clothed woman. Although it was only one small realm, the difference between the two was like heaven and earth in the dominator realm. Pooh! The old man in red immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. His body was almost torn into pieces, and his face was pale. The white-clothed woman had a mocking expression and did not intend to let the old man in red go. The torrent of frost was like a giant ice python that once again tried to devour the old man in red. Please show mercy, Your Excellency. At this moment, a shout was heard. 10 figures tore through the air at lightning speed. The person in the lead was the Grand Elder. Seeing that the old man in red was about to die under the white-clothed woman's hands, the Grand Elder's eyes darkened. The lightning law surged out and turned into a destructive thunderbolt that blasted toward the torrent of frost. Rumble! The world buzzed. The lightning law was annihilated in the void. The Grand Elder spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. What? Seeing this scene, countless people in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance were shocked. One had to know that the Grand Elder's lightning law was already half a step into the realm of supreme profundity, yet he was still no match for the white-clothed woman's ice law. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.